Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the Real Cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a single dad who loves to talk, Mets baseball, Giants football, movies, and TV. We mix in some funny stories and life lessons along the way. On today's episode, we're going to be doing a post-mortem on the New York Metro's 2025 season. One of the most, if not the most, disappointing seasons in franchise history. Feels like we're saying that every other year in the Steve Cohen era. We'll do a review of the last month of the season, game by game, series by series. We'll go through it all. It's a juicy one. This one's ripe, robust. So buckle up. Without further ado, let's get started up in here. I'm still in mourning. I think most Mets fans are still in mourning. I don't know that we'll come out of mourning. I don't know that you ever come out of mourning. There's a period of grief that's happening now. There are stages of grief. I think we went through a lot of the stages of grief, like the early stages of grief, in like July, August of this season. And so for anyone saying, oh, this is the worst collapse in franchise history, dude, come on now. Come on now. It's certainly not the most painful. It's certainly not the most surprising. This was, as everyone has mentioned, the longest, slowest collapse. We saw this coming for a long time. This wasn't like, oh, we really butchered it in the last week or 2 weeks. I mean, we for sure did, but this was an ongoing process. This is a repeated behavior and trend and pattern that had been happening for 2-3 months. A slow motion car crash that we saw coming and we just couldn't avoid. It was like, not necessarily a nightmare, but just a bad dream where you're paralyzed. You can't move. You see things happening. You want things to happen and nothing is happening. There's an expression. You can only blame yourself for what happened and what transpired this season. And that phrase has never been more true than the 2025 season for the Mets. They can only blame themselves. You want to put the onus on XYZ, exterior forces and factors and variables? No. This comes down to the Mets not playing good baseball. And that's why, I was torn in terms of if we do make the playoffs. Obviously, you got my support 1,000%, but your confidence level cannot be high if we made the playoffs. Just for the sole reason that we just didn't play well. Very sloppy baseball, very unclutch hitting, and the pitching just failed you repeatedly. But postseason's the second season, right? It's a whole new season. And there are a lot of people saying, like, we're one of the worst teams in baseball since June 13th. Multiple 7-game losing slumps. And we'll either miss the playoffs or we're going to win multiple series in the playoffs. That's just how unpredictable the postseason can be. I think there have been a healthy amount of postseasons since the playoff format has been expanded, where you have teams that wouldn't normally have made it or had looked like they were underdogs, low seeds that just come out and stick it to the top seeds, the higher seeds. So there was always that kind of, as down and as despondent as we were heading into September after a pretty shitty August, it's like we could turn it on a dime. We all felt like we could turn it on a dime. We were just waiting, like the fans were waiting, but it seems like the players were waiting for things to change, for that turning point, for the momentum to shift. It just seems like everyone was waiting. We're waiting, and we would get a little taste, a little nibble of what it could look like, what their potential is, their capacity, and we're like, okay, this is the game that turns it around. This is the game. This is the moment. This is the inning. This is it. And then immediately followed by a letdown and another disappointment. So, yeah, it's not stunning. 2007, 2008. I mean, this argument and debate has been going on this specific year for 2 months. and I guess it'll continue to rage on. But in my eyes, 07 and 08 were way worse, way worse. 07 was just so unbelievably shocking. This is a slow burn. This is like, just slowly, incrementally, by 1%, turning up the heat, turning up the heat, turning up the heat, to the point where you'd seen it enough times where we fail, we blow leads, blow saves, unable to come up with a run, trailing after the 8th, which that stat will never not make my jaw drop. Inability to show fight and competitiveness. I mean, you just look at the body language itself almost across the board. And what's most concerning, it's the young guys. And maybe it is a case of just it's youth, not knowing how to handle the experience, not knowing how to handle your emotions, your behavior, not knowing how to be a good teammate. But you looked at guys like Vientos, Mauricio, Acuna. There's a lot of younger guys who just didn't look like they wanted to be there. And it's like, holy fuck, you guys. We're in the middle of a goddamn race to the postseason. Where's the energy? So, as much as when the leaders in the clubhouse speak to the press and the media and the managers sitting there post game and they're all saying, well, we're just trying to figure it out. We're waiting for it to click and and we're staying positive. We're staying together. Where was the fire? Where was the leadership? It kind of goes back to what we were talking about during the losing period last season, in the first half of the season, where it was like we were one of the worst teams in baseball. They had the players only meeting, and then it just, it started to gel and they got chemistry and they were vibing. That was it. It felt a lot of times the vibing felt forced this season. Like we're trying to recreate the magic from 2024 and it's not working. And like I said, a lot of guys not hustling, just like sloppy baseball. So let's get into breaking down and reviewing September. Insane to think that we entered September 1st, beginning of the month, with the same exact record we had in 2024. In 2024, we were 73 and 64. We were one game back of the third wild card spot. In 2025, we're 73 and 64. We hit a 4-game lead on the third wild card spot, and we had, I think, you to a T, every Mets fan, you would ask them, September 1st, 2024, how do you feel about this club? Really good. September 1st, 2025, how do you feel about this club? Really bad. It's just like, just unreal, just to see like the team dynamics and just the overall attitude and climate for the clubhouse. We start off September with that 3-game set in Detroit, take 2 of 3 there, put up a lot of runs in those first 2 games, not so much in the third. In that first game, Soto goes 2 for 3 with 2 runs, six ribbies, 2 walks. Most of those RBIs coming from the grand slam. He also had a triple. Luis Torrens went 3 for 3, 2 runs, 2 ribbies, and a double. Sean Manaea, I think I was not alone in saying and thinking that it was a great re-signing when it happened over Christmas break, that we locked up Manaea for, was it 3 years, $25 million a year? I don't know. I mean, as a fan, you just hope that this is just a blip. This is just a speed bump. He had the injury setback. That had to have an effect and an impact on him throughout the season. He probably was trying to battle through it and just couldn't overcome it. But he went 3 2/3, 8 hits, 5 earned, 6 Ks, 2 home runs on 83 pitches. We got to Charlie Morton, who gave up 6 earned runs, and Drew Summers, who gave up 3 earned runs for the Tigers. Ryan Stanek had his 6th blown save. Ryan Stanek, holy shit. I was for bringing him back, and I think I wanted to put together a case to keep Ryan Stanek because there are games and there are innings and there are appearances where he looks really good. And it's just like, this is our setup guy. And then it just over and over. I'm looking to defend this guy and make a case for keeping him, and it's just like, oh my God, another one and another one. ERA over 5. It's just hard to justify bringing him back. But yet again, you're in this weird position where we went through so many pitchers this year. Do you hold on to pitchers that are less than ideal but have shown you potential just because for insurance purposes? This is what you have to kind of think about. It's like, I think a lot of people are just very quick to dismiss pitchers and move on from them and say, no, no, no. But then you look at what happens over the course of a season and the amount of pitchers you go through, and you think, maybe it's good to just try and stash them, if it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Helsley got the hold. Diaz got the save. I mean, my God, I remember talking about the start in April into May, into June, halfway through June, saying this is one of my favorite Mets teams of all time. And look at this lineup and look at this roster. We're just loaded. We have depth across the board. We have so many starters and so many great relievers. And we have mid-relief that could be closers. We have setup guys that could be closers. And look at all the moves we made at the deadline. And it just all came up short. It's incredible. I mean, this team was on pace with an 86 team, the 88 team, in terms of like top 3, top 4 in franchise history in terms of performance, win-loss, pitching, hitting. Like, it was just, that's how it was looking early on, and that's how it was set up, and just fell apart. That next day, we got the 12-5 win. Soto, again, another great game, 2 for 4, 2 runs and RBI. Alonso, 2 for 5, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. Nimmo, 3 for 5, 2 runs. McNeil, 3 for 5, a run and 3 RBIs. Torrens, 2 for 5, 2 runs, 3 RBIs. Nolan McLean had a rough first inning, but settled down. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 7 Ks. We got to Gibson Long, who gave up 6 earned, and Chris Paddock, who gave up 6 earned. So, and then the final game of that 3-game set, Alonso goes 3 for 4 with an RBI and a double, but we ended up getting this, losing 6-2. We were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position with 9 left on base, which would be, that would be a common thread. That would be like it's been a common thread for a while, where we just can't. We get runners on base, we get runners in scoring position, just cannot get them across home plate. Clay Holmes went 4 2/3, gave up 2 earned runs on 85 pitches. Not exactly the start that you're hoping for. That was another common thread. Just their starters not being able to go 5 innings, much less 6 innings. The hope is they go 6. You'll settle for 5. Towards the end of the season, it was like, can we just get 3 innings? We couldn't even get out of the first inning a couple starts. Lot of low, not a lot of quality starts from our starters. I think we had the least amount of innings pitched from starters in the league, maybe even in franchise history. And then you had the most amount of innings pitched by our relief staff, our bullpen. Just not a winning combination. Helsley went 2/3 of an inning. 2/3 of an inning, gave up 3 earned runs and a home run. You had in the bottom of the second, you had with 2 outs, Tigers are up, runners on first and second, and Jake Rogers singles to right on a line drive, and McKinstry scores. Javi Baez goes to third. In the top of the third, you have Alonso, who doubles to center. Lindor scores. Bottom 5, you have Riley Green off Gregory Soto singling, with 2 guys scoring. Gregory Soto is another case of like that. I mean, it's been well documented. The acquisitions that David Stearns made this season, almost everyone underperformed big time. say like Tyler Rogers was probably your one acquisition where it's like he played up to his potential. Soto's another one where it's just like not awful, but also you don't feel confident in him. More times than not, he's putting guys on. He's putting you in precarious positions. So, top 6 scores 3-2, 1 out, bases juiced. Starling Marte, has an opportunity to at least get one run across, grounds into a double play. Feels like that was not an isolated incident with Starling Marte. There are plenty of times where he's getting up with runners in scoring position and less than 2 outs, and not just him. I think it's you saw a lot of that in the month of September, where it's like, and it drove me nuts. It drove Mets fans nuts. Guy on second or third, or second and third, less than 2 outs, 0 outs, 1 out, and neither of those guys or any of those guys score. How the fuck is that possible? And I see winning baseball teams, playoff teams, get that guy home. I just saw it in the opening game of the wild card series, Cubs hosting the Padres. It's 2-1 Cubs, so they're already winning. But they have a guy on third, less than 2 outs. I think it's Nico Horner might be at bat. And he doesn't, and it's so, and I hate using this word because it's a chick thing to say, but intentional. I think women always say, oh, I need a man who's intentional. It's like, okay. But this was intentional. This at bat from Nico Horner. He understood that it's a tight game. You want to get an insurance run, provide a little breathing room for your pitching staff. Guy on third, less than 2 outs. Sac fly. That's all that was running through his head that entire at bat. Sac fly, sac fly, sac fly. The swing that he delivered on the sac fly, he's not trying to hit it out of the ballpark. He's not even trying to hit it hard. He literally is just trying to it's almost like he did a chip shot in golf. He was just like, I just need to get this ball elevated and deep enough to score. I don't need to smoke it. I don't need to crush it. I don't need to overexert myself here. He literally put on a 70 to 80% strength swing. He was not swinging full strength. It might even been less than 70%. He just wanted to make contact and make sure he made enough contact where he put some English on it to get it out far enough to score the runner from third. You just did not see that for the majority of the season with the Mets, especially in September. So it's like, ground ball double play is the worst thing you could do in that situation. Especially with 1 out. Just an absolute killer. And then bottom 7, Helsley gives up the home run to Kerry Carpenter, which, Tigers were up 3-2 at the time, and then that basically puts it out of reach. So, coming into this series, the Tigers were 80-58. 80-58 entering September. They had a 9.5 game lead in the division, and they ended up finishing 87-75 and lost the division title, I think, on the last day or the second to last day. They ended up in second place, and lo and behold, they're now up 1-0 in the wild card versus the Guardians, the team that caught them. I'm recording this on Wednesday morning, October 1st. But you want to talk about a collapse. I mean, there were plenty of collapses down the stretch. The Mets were not alone in that category. Like the Tigers, pretty huge collapse. I think the Guardians actually could have won that game 1 wild card if there was smarter base running later on that game. I think it was the 8th inning. It might have been Ramirez. It's like ground ball to the pitcher, and he gets caught out, and then that's the end of that rally. So, Scooble's he's a beast. He's a monster. But do the Tigers have anyone other than Scooble, Will Scooble have to come back on short rest for Game 3? I don't know. So that was the Tigers series. Still you take 2 of 3, and you have to feel good about yourself. Like, okay, this is a really good team we played. We have stunk on the road. We go into Detroit, Motown, and we don't necessarily mow them down, but 2 very convincing, nice, strong wins, and a third that you were flirting with a victory. If, Helsley gets out of the inning, Marte gets the clutch hit. So you got to feel good about yourself, right? This is it. The team's turning it around. How many times during September did we say that? This is it. This is the turning point. This is where we turn things around. So we have that 3-game set against the Reds, and this is where the wheels start to fall off. We get the opening game of the series. We get the win, 5-4, but it's by the skin of our teeth, and it's based on a tremendous play by Luis Angel Acuna at second base. Diaz loaded the bases and was able to escape with the win and the save. If we don't win that game, our season would have been over earlier than game 162. But we then follow up a huge win where it's like, maybe we do have the magic. This is where the magic kicks in. And then we go back-to-back losses, 6-3 and 3-2. So that first game where we win 5-4, Soto goes 2 for 4 with a run, RBI. Lindor has 3 walks, 2 runs. Mark Vientos, 2 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. Peterson gives us 5 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 4 earned, 4 Ks. He did have a game score of 41, which is below the average, which is 50. So you could call it a gritty start, gutsy start. Ironically, I think it would be one of his better starts in September. That's how bad Peterson was down the stretch. And we'll talk about it in more detail later, but it's mostly because he exceeded he had the most innings pitched in his career by a healthy margin. So I think it's just a running out of gas situation. Diaz gave up 2 walks and a hit to load the bases in the 9th, but came away with 2 strikeouts and that ground ball out to Acuna. We got 5 earned runs off Andrew Abbott. In all the top plays, it comes down to the bottom of the 9th there. And, Diaz getting Noel Marte to strike out swinging. Ellie De La Cruz, that was a huge out, strikeout looking. In terms of other big plays that, helped cement the win, Vientos with the home run off Abbott. Vientos with a single to third, which was the little dribbler that Lindor scored on. And then you have Soto with the double to right that scored Lindor, and Marte's single to right, which scored Vientos. So huge to get those 2 runs in the top of the first, and then to tack on to it in the top of the 4th was good. So early, it's a case of like getting to the starter early on and scoring, getting out to a lead, early lead, was crucial for us. And, a lot of times that means you should win, but then, when given our bullpen situation. So September 6th, in that game against the Reds, we had a 6-3 loss. Lindor 3 for 4, 1 run, one walk. Soto 2 for 4, 1 walk. Jared Young had a home run. It feels like Jared Young, that's all he did was hit home runs. Nimmo got a sac fly. We were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. We left 10 runners on base. Jonah Tong had a kind of a weird outing. It's like 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, but they were all home runs. Every hit he gave up was a home run, resulting in 4 earned runs. And then Ryan Stanek, 1/3 of an inning, 3 hits, 2 earned, 1 walk. Yuck. Looking at the top plays from the game, bottom of the second, Sal Stewart with 2 out, runner on first, hits a home run off Jonah Tong. Top 3, Jeff McNeil with the bases juiced, 2 outs, grounding out. Jeff McNeil A lot of people are saying they're fine with not seeing Jeff McNeil playing another inning in a Mets uniform. I have news for you. He does have another year on his contract, maybe more. Might have like an option in 2027, if I'm remembering correctly. So I don't think that McNeil is really going anywhere. I think this is his last hurrah in 2026. This is it for him in a Mets uniform. Barring something like a career year where he's instrumental in terms of helping the team make the playoffs and win a World Series, barring something that's crazy, yeah, I think next season is the last season with Jeff McNeil. Hell of a run. Lots of, oh my God, very turbulent tenure with the Mets for Jeff McNeil. And you like to see the passion, the fire. It's reminiscent of a Wally Backman from the 80s, but it starts to wear on the team, on the staff, and even the booth. You can see it. Like a lot of times McNeil was coming up short in clutch situations down the stretch over the course of September and would throw his helmet or get ejected for having a fiery outburst. And you could tell from the tone in the booth from Gary, Keith, and Ron that it's just wearing thin. The shtick is wearing thin. That's a behavior that you tolerate when you're winning. You almost admire and respect when you're not in an 0 for whatever slump. When you think you should have got the best of someone, but when it's every time, you're coming up needing a hit, needing a walk, needing to advance the runner, needing a sac fly, and not getting the job done repeatedly, and then having that reaction, it's like, well, I could do without that. Yeah, bottom 3, McLean hits the home run off Tong, and then bottom 4, you have Austin Hayes going deep off Tong, and then top 7, Jared Young hits the bomb off Scott Barlow. So Michael Barron on September 6th posted on X that Mark Vientos in his last 40 games since July 10th up until that date, September 6th, had a slash line of 295, 335, 584, 11 doubles, 1 triple, 10 home runs, and 36 RBIs, 44 hits, and 19 runs. And since August 17th, so from August 17th to September 6th, Vientos led all National League hitters in home runs, RBIs, slugging percentage, extra base hits, and total bases, while also ranking second in OPS and tied for 4th in runs. And yet we're still in this weird situation where, I took a look at the numbers. Vientos had a negative WAR for the season. And, that's positive offensive WAR, negative defensive WAR, which is weird because he makes highlight reel plays. He can make highlight reel plays at third. He's not a total disaster at third. There are times where he makes those plays and you're like, how is he not the everyday starting third baseman? But then he'll boof a couple other easy plays and you're like, okay, got it. So the Mets are in an interesting situation when it comes to the whole Beatty versus Vientos argument. I think given Beatty's performance, given that he was top 4 in WAR, overall WAR for the team, I think he was close to surpassing Pete Alonso in WAR this season. And he put up career highs across the board that I think everyone's pretty much in alignment that he needs to be the starting everyday third baseman. What then happens with Vientos, to me, and Pete's, and this has been the major point of contention between Pete and the front office, is Pete wants to play first, feels like he has what it takes to win a Gold Glove and to be a positive in the field and not a negative. But Pete, dude, you just had your worst defensive WAR season of your career, minus 1.8. So if I'm Pete, it's like, demand money, you deserve it, but it's not for your defense. You do make some stellar plays on occasion. It's not like you can't play first base at all. You're not a complete liability at first base, but you are hurting the team starting 162 games at first base. I would imagine, and this has been noted publicly, it's been reported on, that he wants to play first base. He does not want to play DH. The analytics show that he should probably play DH. The front office has said as much and has said we can only pay so much for just a DH, and that's where you're getting the disagreement and butting heads. And at this point, it's like, Pete, come on, dude, who are you fooling? You love this team. You make a great pairing with Lindor and Soto. Offensively, there's no question you've come up huge for us, and we would sorely miss that if he did sign somewhere else. So it's like, obviously you're gonna have to overpay a little bit for a guy who's gonna end up being a DH, but in my eyes, worth it for a number of reasons. Sentimental, nostalgia for him as well. Like, he wants to win a World Series with the Mets for sure. So you're telling me you'd rather sign a bigger contract with another team that might not make the playoffs, and you put up some good numbers, but like, I don't know. I guess players don't think about that, but to me, it's like, you got a good thing going here. It was a rough season, but it's all in the pitching, dude. I mean, I know the hitting with runners in scoring position, a lot of guys left on base. I get it, but the pitching came up short more times than not. So you get some pitching and you win the World Series, you get your number retired, Mets Hall of Fame. Like, that's all right there. You go to somewhere else and it's just like, that all gets pushed back a little bit. And it's like, your legend gets tainted a little bit. And it's just like, I think they're saying 6 years, $179 million, because he opted out right after the season ended. And people were giving shit for him, criticizing for it. I'm just like, for people who get all huffle puffle, like all their feathers ruffled over that shit, come on, man. Live a better life. They're like, he should have handled it like Edwin Diaz handled it. And it's just like, okay, who's to say that he's not had, I mean, behind closed doors with his wife, he's not having that conversation? Really? And why not just nip it in the bud, dude? I have no problems with him opting out right away. No problems. Because that was the expected decision anyway. You put up a season like he did, you bounce back from for him, a relatively mediocre, one of the worst seasons, quote unquote. It's still a good season by any measurement. He's still better than an average first baseman. And then in 2025, to get off to such a hot start, cooled off significantly in the second half, but still putting up good enough numbers to be franchise best, to be league-wide best, National League best. So, to me, it's like, yeah, he was going to opt out. So why feed into any kind of drama or anything like that? Just say you're opting out so everyone's clear about what's happening. This whole, too many people are concerned about fucking optics and PR. It drives me nuts. I mean, it's probably why I'm in the situation I am right now. Because I don't know how to personally brand. I don't have a personal brand. But here's the deal. I'm a no-nonsense, frank, honest, transparent dude. You knew he was going to opt out. Just say you're opting out. So just get that out of the way so we can get going with the contract negotiations. That's a long winding road to this. Alonso's your DH, which means, Vientos, you better learn how to play first base. Because that's the preferred option. Vientos learns how to play first base. He can be in the lineup every day. Pete's in the lineup every day as a DH. You have to hope that Vientos is better defensively than Pete, which big question mark and unknown. Beatty's your third baseman. McNeil's your second baseman, and you find a starting center fielder. As much as I love Tyrone Taylor, he's a platoon late inning defensive replacement. Platoon is worst case scenario in my eyes, and defensive replacement is ideal. 8th inning, 9th inning, he comes in the center, makes the play to save the game. So you need a starting center fielder, hands down. And McNeil, this is your last hurrah as the second baseman. And Acuna continues to be this pinch runner defensive replacement. There are some more radical types who are like, blow it up. blow it up, trade Vientos, and I let Pete walk. We can look at all these first basemen we can get on the free agent market. And I'm just like, there's something to be said about maintaining a level of chemistry. And listen, I get it. We're approaching what is the back end of this core that everyone keeps talking about. Like McNeil's run is coming to an end. Nimmo still has a lot of years. He's under contract until 2030. So and Nimmo is not really going anywhere. You have Alonso that, to me, if I'm negotiating with Alonso, 6 years, 179 is not crazy. It's just not. And I think it's worth it. I mean, you look at the offense that he's able to put up, the runs he's able to create. Potentially the most clutch player that we have on the Mets. So, in the batter's box. So, I say he's worth it and give it to him. I'm not completely opposed to trading Vientos, but I still think I would like to see him on the roster, opening day roster, and then see how it plays out until the trade deadline. McNeil's a situation where, I don't think that the market for him is going to be that high. It would have to be a situation where he's hitting at a 2022 level and the team's not winning, and then he goes to a playoff contender to help them. That's the only way I see him being dealt at the deadline. Vientos, it might be a similar situation where it's like offensively does well, defensively not well again. Team is not, we'd have to be sellers at the deadline, because, it's fluid. I mean, if we're winning and we're in contention and we just need a little extra push and you feel like McNeil or Vientos are not huge, massive contributors and you want upgrades at those two positions, maybe they get dealt. But it's wild to see what Michael Barron posted on X in terms of the slash line and being among the best for Vientos, and then to see at the end of the year he has like a negative WAR. It's like, what the fuck? Mets Analytics posted this on X. The most win probability added in a season by a reliever in Mets history. Edwin Diaz's 2025 season comes in 6th. Ironically, in 11th, the 11th highest win probability added was Seth Lugo in 2019. That's because Edwin Diaz stunk so much in 2019 that we had to go to Seth Lugo to be our closer. I'm telling you, if Edwin Diaz had pitched in 2019 like he did in 2022 and 2025, we're in the playoffs and we probably go on a run. But he was just constantly let us down that season. 10th overall is Roger McDowell in 85. You had at 9, you had Armando Benitez in 2000, and then at 8, you had Armando Benitez in 2001. Jesse Orosco comes in at 7th at 83. So then you have Diaz in 2025. Billy Wagner's 2006 season was 5th. Jurice Familia in 2015 was 4th. Diaz in 2022 was 3rd. Randy Myers in 1988 was 2nd. People forget. And then Benitez in 2002 with the highest win probability added by a reliever in a season in Mets history. So September 7th, we lose 3-2. This one's a heartbreaker, a backbreaker. We only mustered 3 hits. Soto had the solo home run. Beatty had a solo home run. We only got one motherfucking runner in scoring position. Granted, it's against Hunter Green, who's their ace, who's their number 1. He just started the wild card series game 1 against the Dodgers in LA. Got his tits ripped, but Hunter Green went 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 walks, 12 Ks. The Sprout get Brandon Sprout threw 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 earned, 4 walks, 7 Ks for a 57 game score. So that's 9 times out of 10. That's probably should be good enough to win the ball game. And this is one of the I don't want to say rare occasions, but this happened less than our bullpen falling us, was our offense just not showing up, and it all comes down to that, the top of the 9th, Let me see here if I can get this right in chronological order. Scores 3-2, top 9. We got 1 down. Pete reaches first on an error by the shortstop. We sub in We have I believe Luis Angel. Was it Acuna who comes in? Oh, this is where I think I fucked up. Is it Acuna comes in to pinch run, or is it friggin' Mauricio? Regardless, I think someone I forget who pinch ran for Alonso in that situation, which is it's to pinch run for Alonso is the right move. It's just a matter of like who did you select to pinch run? It's Acuna, great. Yes, it was Acuna. Okay. Runner on first. Acuna comes in to pinch run for Alonso. Nice. Nimmo singles to left field on a line drive. So now you have first and second. Acuna on second, Nimmo on first, 1 out. Who comes up? Starling Marte. And what does he do? You know it. You love it. He grounds into a double play to end the game. It's like 2022 Starling Marte would have got on base. 2025 Marte grounds into a double play to end the game. Ugh. The Reds were 70-70 coming into that series against the Mets. They were in third place in the NL Central behind the Brewers and Cubs, 16 games back in the division. They then went 11-8 after that series, ended up getting swept by the A's in Sacramento and losing 2 of 3 to the Pirates at home. And yet, because of that series against the Mets, in the tiebreaker, winning, they own the head-to-head record, 4 wins to 2 losses. So if you come up big in that spot, it's 3 apiece. Mets have 3 wins, Reds have 3 wins, and I forget what the tiebreaker sequence is beyond that. I mean, to me, it would have been cool to just have a 1-game playoff. I like that. That's cool. Settle on the field. But I think it would have been, I don't know if it would have been margin of victory or divisional record. Our divisional record was not good, so I don't think we're going to win on that. I have to look at what the Reds' divisional record is. But margin of victory, we actually had a higher margin of victory than the Reds. So if it's margin of victory and we're tied, 3 apiece, then Mets would have got in. But again, Mets had so many opportunities, even in the last freaking game of the season, so many opportunities where things fell in their favor, fell their way, and couldn't capitalize. So no, they did. I said they didn't deserve to make the playoffs in August, and I think a lot of people were in the same boat. You're not playing well enough to more times than not, you're playing like garbage. Like you just don't belong in the playoffs, especially against weak teams. This was also around the time that we sent Kodai Senga to AAA. I think, the eye test would tell you, yeah, he's just doesn't have it. At the same time, you look at his overall numbers, he had like the second highest WAR among pitchers on the team. Like, what the fuck? Just a weird season, Like Senga gets sent down to AAA, but then you have Peterson getting shelled, you have Manaea getting shelled. It's like, would Senga have done worse? I don't know. You have to rely on Jonah Tong, who was like AA a month ago, Sproat, who was like AA a couple months ago. Like, you have to rely on these pitchers that just don't have big league experience. And then the guy that you signed to a fairly decent contract, I mean, it's not like a mega contract, but who was essentially your ace in 2023 by default because Verlander and Scherzer were hurt and stunk. What a crazy turn of events for Senga. And I mean, I guess it turns out that's the right move because he was even worse in his rehab stints in the minors. When he got demoted, it was just like he was also getting shelled down there. So Mets placed Luis Torrens on the injured list with a minor right forearm issue during this time. And Tyler McGill was also had a setback with his right elbow. He ended up having Tommy John. That's another big loss. A lot of people are so angry at the Mets on the team, and rightfully so, that stayed healthy and couldn't perform or didn't come up clutch. But I know you can't use injuries as an excuse, but holy shit, man. I mean, you look at what happened to the Braves. The Braves had a lot of injuries and could not muster a 500 record. So injuries do take their toll. You lost AJ Minter very early on. I know it's a very small sample set, but dude was awesome in the limited amount of time we got to see him. You lost Griffin Canning, who was having a career year. And again, smaller sample set, but like was one of your better pitchers early on. Lost him for the year. And Tyler McGill, despite what people say about him after April and May being not great, would have been nice to have him down the stretch so you don't have to force a Jonah Tong into the starting rotation. You don't have to force a Brandon Sproat into the starting rotation. I'm not saying that McGill would have been necessarily better than Tong, but you could make an argument. There was 2 or 3 games where Tong was like he just completely outmatched and overwhelmed. Would McGill have given you a slightly better chance in those outings? I don't know. It's like Tong's best was better than what you see from McGill after May and April, but Tong's worst was worse than McGill's worst. If that makes sense. So net, I think McGill's the better pitcher, but yeah, Tommy John for McGill. So he's gone for like I think he won't be able to pitch for most of next season, if at all. And then we have the 4 games set against the Phillies, and this is where any chance of us winning the division went completely out the window. So coming into that, and this is when I recorded my last episode about the Mets, but coming into that game, it was like the Mets production, the SNY production team, the booth, like everyone, the fans, everyone was like 7-17, 7-17. We're going to flip the script. We're going to turn the tables on the Phillies, who did it to us in 2007 when they were down 7 games with 17 to play. We're now down 7 games with 17 to play. We're now going to have this push that is reminiscent of what, the complete opposite of what happened to us in 2007. And it was a defiant no from the Phillies. The Phillies were like, nah. Not going to happen. We got swept in 4, and it was an ugly sweep. There was very little to make you think that we had anything in the tank after this 4-game sweep. Ugh. Just ugh. That opening game on September 8th, we lose 1-0. We only got 5 hits. 2 of them were from Alonso. We were 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position, left 7 runners on base. Harrison Bader, you had to know once he ended up with the Phillies that he was going to murder the Mets. In broad daylight, in cold blood, with everyone, with thousands of eyewitnesses, and the cops are just sitting there shrugging their shoulders like, what? We told you. He was just an absolute menace and terror. Guy that lost his starting center fielder job with the Mets to Tyrone Taylor down the stretch into the playoffs, had a bit of a renaissance with the Twins, I think it was, before the Phillies acquired him at the trade deadline. There were some people, we'll get to in a little bit, saying that like the Mets should have brought him back. And it's like, would he have wanted to come back? Maybe. But it feels like he's more apt to take the revenge angle against the Mets, which is usually what happens with guys that get shystered by the organization. Noah McLean, not his best start, 5 1/3, 7 hits, 1 earned, 3 walks, 5 Ks. Aaron Nola, who we usually dominate, we usually play well against or hit well, had an ERA over 6 coming into the game. He ends up going 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 7 Ks, which is just that was another recurring theme for the season, is just like pitchers that we should be able to light up coming into the game with an ERA over 5 or 6 or higher and just not being able to produce against them. Just absolute mystery as to why that's happening. We had our chances in the top of the 9th, and this is, again, another example of like, if it's 2022, we win this game. And maybe we even, we win this game in 2024. Maybe we even win this game in 2023. All the top plays in terms of win probability added came in the top of the 9th, right? So let me look here. Top 9, no outs, nobody on. Pete Alonso singles to center field on a ground ball. Hell yeah, up the middle. Let's do this. Way to go, Pete. Off Jean Duran. Another trade acquisition by the Phillies from the Twins. Thanks, Minnesota. So no outs, top 9. You got Alonso on first. Nimmo lines out to left field, put some solid wood on it, but just didn't fall. So now you got 1 out, runner on first. So this is the situation where Mauricio is the pinch runner for Alonso and not Acuna. And I forget if Acuna had played already, pinch hit, but Man, it would have been nice to have Acuna in this spot pinch running than it is to have Mauricio in this spot because Vientos comes up against Duran and smashes a double to right field, and Mauricio does not score. He only makes it to third. And it makes you think, why is Mauricio pinch running? Is Mauricio not as fast as I thought he was? And I guess he isn't. He did not look fast going to third base, and so ends up on third base. You now have runners on second and third with one out, and this is what we have talked about before, and it's what needs to change in 2026. Jeff McNeil comes up against Duran. You got runners on second and third. You got Vientos on second, Mauricio on third. One out. You absolutely 10,000% Jeff McNeil, a veteran who has been in this situation before, cannot strike out swinging. You have to put the ball in play. Ideally, a sac fly would be great. We make it look so goddamn hard when I see teams in the playoffs doing it nonstop. You have a guy on third, less than 2 outs, get him in. Has to be a priority. You have to think sac fly. At the very least, you have to think make contact. And he strikes out swinging. So now we have 2 outs, runners on second and third still, and Francisco Alvarez is out. And this is where and I think I mentioned in the last episode because I might have been watching the game while recording the episode, but one of the worst at-bats you'll ever see in Major League Baseball history. Just completely uncompetitive, did not take a strike, swinging out of his shoes at pitches that are out of the strike zone on all 3 pitches and strikes out swinging. Just an uncompetitive, unintelligent at bat from Francisco Alvarez. And I mean, he's a risky proposition. He's a roll of the dice when he comes up in a clutch situation because he's either going to hit a monster home run or get a monster clutch hit, or he's going to give you one of the worst at bats you've ever seen. That was probably the most disheartening loss, and that's to kick off the 4-game set. And it's just like, guys, just put the ball in play. Good things will happen. So yeah, Cedric Mullins taking a lot of heat from the fan base during this time. At Jolly_Olive Jack from John Boy Media on September 8th. He said Cedric Mullins' last 10 games, 0 for 25, 5 walks to 8 strikeouts, down to 176 batting average and a 562 OPS as a Met. Woof. Dan Bartles at Dan Bartles 2 said Cedric Mullins pops up a bunt and is now 0 for his last 26, setting a new career high. Previous career high set in June of 2024. Sal Licata, when you replace Pete Alonso with a pinch runner, he needs to score on a double from first. What a frustrating, sloppy game for the Mets. Absolutely 100% agree. It's the little things, man. You can talk about home runs and slugging percentage and all that great stuff, but fundies, dude. You got a guy right there in the booth who preaches good fundies, and we did not have good fundies. Not getting down the bunt to move over the runner, not getting a sacrifice fly to knock a guy in, not moving a guy over. It's just, for as good as we were stealing bases this year and not getting caught, we got picked off a lot. And it was not like great moves or anything. It was just being lackadaisical, not being aware, not being heads up. You can understand in April, in May, and even June. But post All-Star break, lock the fuck in. Be more aware. Be more attentive. Tune up your focus and concentration. Brandon Tierney, Sal Licata's co-host on The Fan, WFAN, said Mauricio is in the 13% for sprint speed. He's flat out slow. So is Pete, but he's smart and savvy on the bases. If you're going to make that move, do it with someone who can actually run. Sloppy move by Mendy. Absolutely. And is that a case of like Mauricio's down in the dumps because he's not getting playing time? He's getting outplayed by Vientos and Beatty and Acuna, and he wants to lift his spirits? I just don't understand that move. And it costs you the game. I've kind of been of the mindset where it's like, there's only so much blame you can put on a manager during the course of a season. But, for the people that are clamoring to fire Mendoza after this season, I'm not one of them, but man, he's not making a strong case with a lot of the decisions he made this season. There were a handful of decisions that, in retrospect, you look back and say that was the wrong move, and it ultimately did cost them the game. And when you lose out on a tiebreaker, when all you needed was one more win, you point to something like this and you're like, that cost you the game. Ben Yole said, second and third with one out and you don't score, pathetic. McNeil has to hit one in the air. Alvey looked completely overwhelmed, which is true. Talking Baseball said Francisco Alvarez failed at 3 straight curveballs off the plate with the game on the line. Facts. Rich McClud said the 2025 Mets are the least clutch baseball team of all time. Citation needed, but I'd have to lean towards yeah. When you look at the fact that we were 0 for 67 or 0 for 69, depending on who you follow, when trailing in the 8th inning or later. Not one win. Not one time. It felt like we were so clutch in 2022, and then in 2024, it's just like we're alternating. 2022 clutch, 2023 no, 2024 clutch, 2025 no. So if that pattern continues, you can expect a really great year in 2026, as I do. I think that this is the year. Of course, a lot depends on the offseason. I know, dude, but I have a very good feeling about it. Good Fundings Brian said the Mets were third in the Major League Baseball in 2024 with 41 come from behind wins. The leader had 43. In 2025, they're 0-60 when trailing going into the ninth. Yeah, so that would not change, Good Fundies. I'm from the future, and I'm here to tell you it does not change. On September 9th, we lost 9-3 to the Phillies. Soto and Vientos and McNeil all had RBIs. Vientos with the home run. Harrison Bader yet again. Holy shit. 3 for 5, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. Schwarber was 1 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Castellanos had 2 RBIs. Manea went 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned, 2 home runs, and 5 Ks. It feels like he gave up a lot of home runs, and I have a stat on that later. Hageman went 3 innings, pitched 8 hits, 5 earned runs, and again, you're like, well, how the hell was he left in the ballgame? It's like, well, this is what happens when your bullpen is taxed and your starters give you 0 quality starts. You have to rely on a Hageman to just, hey, man, you're going to have to take one for the team here and just absorb a horrific stat line because we have 0 healthy arms or rested arms that can go in. Ranger Suarez continues to kill us. 6 innings pitched, no runs, 1 hit, 3 walks, 12 Ks. Mets were 4-8 since sweeping the Phillies at home. You know, that was another situation. That was another time where we're like, all right, here we go. Now we're turning it on. The switch is flipped. Let's go. The light is on. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like, no, that's actually you're dying. That's you dying. That's your brain shutting down. Yeah, Mets 4-8 since sweeping the Phillies. Allergic to their own success, said Just Mets. I agree. Tommy Lagower, who I believe goes by Positive Tommy, says some food for thought. In 2023, the Texas Rangers had a 4-16 stretch in late August to early September. They were a wild card team. They ended up winning the World Series. Anything can happen in baseball. Stay positive. Don't give it up. And, I think, yeah, if you're looking at percentages, I'd say we were like 80 to 90% negative, but like 10 to 20% positive. We're still holding out hope that this team figures it out and is just getting all their bad baseball out, before the home stretch. And it turns out, nah, dude, couldn't shake it. So that definitely was like, okay, we're down and out. People are counting us out. We probably just lost the division, but just get in the postseason. Juan Soto was the 5th player in Mets history to reach the 30-30 mark, joining Francisco Lindor, David Wright, Darryl Strawberry, and my man, my favorite Mets player growing up. I know that might be hard to hear for some other Mets legends and icons. Apologies, but Hojo, Howard Johnson, did it 3 freaking times with the Mets. Is he in the Mets Hall of Fame? I don't even know. I should know that. But like his number is not retired. And I wish I saw more Howard Johnson jerseys out there. I might just go out and snag one up. But Hojo, in a time where things were not great and falling apart, was our best player. He was our best player in 89 and was our best position player in 91 and I want to say 92. When things were getting grim, he was still playing at a high level. It's like if you take his individual season efforts and put them on a winning team that went to the playoffs or goes to the World Series, we're talking about Howard Johnson in a completely different light. We just, dude. September 10th, we get smoked by the Phillies 11-3. Soto was 3 for 5, 2 runs, an RBI, a home run, and a double. Marte 2 for 4 with an RBI. We were 3 for 9 with runners in scoring position, and we left 8 runners on base. Harrison Bader, yet again, 2 for 5, 2 runs. Max Kepler, 3 for 4, a run, 5 ribbies. Brandon Marsh, 3 for 5, 2 runs, 2 ribbies. Clay Holmes only went 4 innings, 6 earned, 4 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned, 3 walks, 5 Ks with a game score of 36. Interesting because, the bullpen was not going to do much better. In hindsight, it's like, should we just roll him out there in the 5th and just see what we got, knowing that the bullpen is taxed and their guys are not playing up to their potential, to their averages? But 36 game score is pretty brutal. Soto went inning and a third, 4 hits, 4 earned. Phillies were up 7 games on us in the division coming into the series. We could have flipped the script from 07, but nah. Phillies were 83-60 before the series. Coming into the series, they were 83-60. It's insane to think that the Philadelphia Phillies could have gone 1-18 down the stretch and still won the division. 1-18 they could have gone and still won the division. Instead, they went 13-6 and they got the number 2 seed in the National League. They almost got the 1 seed. It came down to the last 2 games before losing it to the Brewers, losing the 1 seed to the Brewers. Matthew Brownstein on X said, most home runs by a Mets hitter before playing in his 300th career game. At the top of the list is Pete Alonso with 86. Then you have Darryl Strawberry, 58. David Wright, 56. And then you have Mark Vientos with 54 in only 297 games played. So that's where we're in an interesting position with Vientos, man, because I'm rattling off some pretty impressive numbers, not just at the individual level, but team level, league level, franchise level, and yet it doesn't is he a part of the future? It's just, it feels like there is a chunk of the fan base that is out on Vientos. There is, you could tell the coaching staff kind of was out on Vientos towards the end of the season, deciding to plug in Mauricio instead of Vientos. It's very interesting to see how it plays out with Mark, because I think, him and Mauricio they just did not look like they wanted to be there. And maybe there was stuff going on in their personal lives that was affecting them, but it did not look they were on a playoff contender contending for a playoff spot. Did not look like it. Mike Mayer posted this on X at Mike Mayer 22. Harrison Bader has 17 hits against the Mets this season and 28 at-bats. Cedric Mullins has 16 hits for the Mets this season and 92 at-bats. So, yeah, it was the wrong move. Michael Barron, at Michael G. Barron on X, said, maybe the next time David Stearns builds a pitching staff, he will do so with fewer ifs, maybes, projects, reclamations, and rolls of the dice. Yeah. But here's the deal, and here's my explanation for it. And I'm sure Stearns looks at it another way or whatever, but when you had Epler, you decided to go all in on Scherzer, a guy who's past his prime, and you paid top dollar, and you got what you got. He broke down multiple times and was not at the level that you would like him to be in his prime. You then went out the very next offseason and got Justin Verlander past his prime. Still can pitch at a high level, very high level. Showed it towards the end of this season. But again, broke down, missed games, not his best effort early on, settled down towards the end of 2023. You went high price tag, high brand name, face recognizable value, big names coming in, big price tags. It didn't work. So then Epler goes, Stearns in, or Epler at least, hears is reacting to that, So it's reactionary in that, okay, we cannot do what we did the past 2 off seasons and go for the high price tag player. We're now going to go after pitchers that provide more value. We want value. And so you get a Manea and a Severino. And then you get with Stearns, you get a Clay Holmes and a Montas, because you figured, all right, it worked in 2024. Let's run it back in 2025. And it came back to bite you. So now, is Stearns going to go the complete opposite way now? And he's going to say, okay, now we got to go for the high price tag pitcher? To me, it's like, just look at the workhorses. It would be typical Mets luck, LOL Mets type outcome for us to get a workhorse who has like pitched 200 innings per season over the past 7 seasons, hasn't missed a start, and then he comes and he like strains his oblique in spring training and misses half the season. That would happen to the Mets. But I'd still say you got to look at, okay, pitchers, free agent pitchers that are workhorses, have averaged around 200 innings pitched per season. But you also have to look at, where's the drop off historically for workhorses like that? Is it the 6th season? Is it the 7th season? Is it the 8th season? And make that cutoff. You have the cutoff, like, okay, this guy's if he's entering his 7th or 8th season and he's a workhorse, odds are he's going to break down and fall apart. If he's entering his 4th, 5th, 6th season and he has another 1 or 2 left, okay, then we go after him. And, I'm trying to think of the pitcher that comes to mind, and I don't know if it's on the Mets. It's not on the Mets, but a guy that's like has an ERA of like 4, 4.5, maybe a skosh under 5, but gives you 200 innings a season. Hands down, take it. Those are the pitchers you have to look at. Now, do I have that short list handy? No, and I'll make sure to have that for the next episode, but that's who you have to go after. Workhorses. Guys who are going to give you close to 200 innings pitched, who are guaranteed to give you 5 innings pitched per outing. And don't worry so much about the quality starts. Just know, and this is where you have to get together with Mendoza and be like, you can't be pulling guys in the 4th. Like you saw what happened. You can't do it, because over the course of a season, it might work month 1, month 2 maybe, but month 3, everyone's gassed. So you have to get more quality. It doesn't even have to be quality starts. It just has to be like, don't completely fuck us in the first 4 innings. Let's try and get through the first. Unbiased Mets fan at the Mets X said, David Stearns' notable pitching acquisitions in 2025. This is a rundown. Free agents. He signs Manea to the 3-year, $75 million deal. He pitches in 10 games, 45 innings pitched, 5.76 ERA, 1.24 whip, 0 quality starts. Frankie Montes, 2 years, $34 million, 9 games, 38 and 2/3 innings pitched, 6.28 ERA, 1.6 whip, 0 quality starts. Griffin Canning, 1 year, $4.25 million, 16 games, 76 and 1/3 innings pitched, 3.77 ERA, 1.4 whip, 3 quality starts. I'll take it, dude. I know that might not work for a lot of other teams. I will take that in a heartbeat. Bring his ass back. AJ Minter, 2 years, $22 million, 13 games, 11 innings pitched, 1.64 ERA, 1 whip. Again, injury. He looked like he was going to be a big positive contributor to the bullpen. And then you have Ryan Stanek, 1 year, 4.5 mil, 57 games, 48 innings pitched, 5.44 ERA, 1.65 whip. So, Minter, Canning, good. Montas, Manea, Stanek, not so great. And then trades, which are all rentals, although I do think they're going to make a strong push. They have to make a strong push to re-sign Tyler Rogers. Ryan Helsley in the trade deadline acquisition, 15 games, 12 innings pitched, 10.5 ERA, 2.25 whip. I saw someone saying that he really settled down over the last 3 or 4 outings and showed you what he can do. And I was just like, I mean, he was earning what, 8 mil, something like that. So I don't know. That could be a pass for me. Tyler Rogers, 18 games, 18 and 1/3 innings pitched, 1.96 ERA, 1.20 whip. Soto, this is up until, so what is this, September 10th. Soto, 17 games, 15 in the third, innings pitched, 1.76 ERA, 1.37 whip. I think he actually performed a lot worse after September 10th. All in all, extremely disappointing. Can't turn everyone's career around no matter who they are. Yeah, I think, and I mean, you look back at some of the videos and episodes I was putting out in the offseason last season, was like, yeah, well, when we signed Clay Holmes, I was like, I mean, hey, it worked with Severino and Manaea. Maybe you feel like you got the magic touch and you can do it for a Montas and a Holmes, and it's like not so much. So, worst MLB record since June 13th. Yeah, at that point, the Mets had the fourth worst record behind the Rockies, Twins, and Nationals, and they were only slightly better than the White Sox. It's 2 months of really just pathetic baseball. September 11th, never forget, we lost 6-4. This was another brutal loss that had opportunities. Marte was 1 for 3, 2 RBIs. Vientos and Nimos also had RBIs, only could come up with 5 hits. We struck out 13 times. 13 times we struck out. Pete struck out 3 times by himself, and we had 0 walks. Peterson went 5 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, 8 Ks. Not bad. We'll take it. Reed Garrett, 2/3 of an inning, 3 hits, 3 earned runs. And everything came undone in the 4th, 5th, and 6th innings. Bryce Harper was 2 for 4, 2 ribbies. Castellanos 2 for 3, 2 runs, 3 ribbies. Otto Kemp 2 for 4, 2 runs, 3 ribbies. Jesus Luzardo gave up 4 earned runs all in the first inning, and then just coasted from that point on. 10 strikeouts, 8 innings pitched, 5 hits. This is a wild stat that made me stop in my goddamn tracks. OptaStats, posted on X, at OptaStats. The Mets are the only Major League Baseball team in the modern era to score 4+ runs in the first inning, but have nobody reach base the rest of the game and end up losing. Now, how are you defining the modern era? I don't know, but it's that sounds like a very long time. Like, are we in the postmodern era now? We were up 4-3 in the bottom of the 6th, and we have Jeff McNeil in center field, and that's a testament to how poorly Cedric Mullins was playing offensively, how poorly I don't even know if Jose Siri was back yet. He might have been back, I'm not sure. And Tyrone Taylor was hurt, I believe. So that's what you're forced to turn to, is Jeff McNeil, who can play center field. Should he play center field? No, but he's like your emergency center fielder, you know? And sure enough, the ball gets past him. Would have got past a Taylor, a Siri, or Mullins? Probably not. James Shiano posted on X at James_Shiano. The Mets have not one but 2 center fielders sitting on their bench who'd make that play. Yep. And then there was a graphic that they put up during the broadcast of deadline acquisitions. You look at the Mets comparison to the Phillies, and Phillies knocked it out of the park. Mets not so much. Mets, Cedric Mullins had a 183 average and a home run since the deadline acquisition. Up until that point, at September 11th, Ryan Helsley was 0 for 3 with an 11 ERA. Meanwhile, Bader, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, 346 average. John Duran, 12 of 13 on save attempts, on saves, 1.32 ERA, 17 Ks to 0 walks. Whew. David Robertson, a former Met, 2.84 ERA, 18 Ks, 5 walks. So Phillies won the trade deadline. Mets, the biggest of L's for the trade deadline. Sal Licata said Stearns could have traded for Bader or tried Drew Gilbert. Instead, after signing Jose Siri in the offseason, he traded Gilbert for Tyler Rogers. So I'm not snap judgment. I'm not so quick to hate that trade, because you got Tyler Rogers, who performed well and you would like to bring back. And then, Stearns traded for Mullins and ends up with Jeff McNeil in center field, with Bader destroying us and Gilbert igniting the Giants, because that was the point where the Giants went on a little run, and it was mostly because of Drew Gilbert. So, the Gilbert thing I'm not as up in arms about. Unbiased Mets fan at the MetsX on X said, no Trey Turner, no Zach Wheeler, no Alec Baum, who he calls Karen, funny, no problem. I don't think I've ever seen a team in all my years with less fights. Simply uncompetitive and pathetic. Yeah. Phillies were out without their big guns. No Turner, no Wheeler, no Baum, and still just laid the smackdown. Phillies outscored the Mets 27-10 in that 4-game set. Ugh. So then we come back home, and we're facing a Rangers team that's fighting for a playoff spot, trying to get off the schneid, trying to end this losing slump. We decide to throw Jonah Tong out on the bump up against Jacob deGrom, and Tong goes 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, 1 K, with an 18 game score, which is one of the lowest I've ever seen in my life. So Greg Soto comes in, inning and third, 2 earned runs. Juan Soto and P. Alonso had sac flies. Alvarez had the home run off DeGrom, which kind of thought, well, maybe that would light a fire. Nope. We had 0 runners in scoring position. Steve Gelbs posted on X, you got a feel for Jonah Tong. The Mets have asked a lot of their young arms, and the 22-year-old just didn't have it tonight. He's out after only 2/3 of an inning and 6 runs across. A lot of people were making the comparison to Jacob deGrom earlier on in his career, getting shelled in a home game against the Rangers. I don't know if it was a home game, but getting shelled against the Rangers back in whatever year it was, and Terry Collins coming over and sitting and putting his arm around him on the bench. And that screenshot, even the greats have their off days, and then, basically making that same parallel to Jonah Tong sitting on the bench and not getting consoled. Like, did Mendoza go over and console him like Terry Collins did? Kind of wonder, what would happen if Steve Cohen is the owner during the Terry Collins era? Are we looking at much better baseball? Yes. Are we looking at repeatedly going to the playoffs? Yes. So just a timing thing. It all comes down to timing. So we get down so early that, this is Jacob deGrom's return to Citi Field. This is the first time he's pitched at Citi Field since he left the Mets. And, they put together the video package. They play his song as he comes out. And it's just crickets from the crowd at Citi Field. The Mets welcome back Jacob deGrom to Citi Field after they allow 6 runs in the first to the Rangers. And then we have the awkward scene on the SNY broadcast with Ron Darling saying, quote, "We stayed with you folks because we wanted to see the reaction from the crowd, but they are just stunned," end quote. Incredibly awkward. SNY, and I think everyone thought, oh, deGrom is going to get booed, he's going to get a standing ovation, and instead it was nothing. Just because, just completely took wind out of the sails, sucked the entire stadium dry of all and any energy. Just fuck. We thought Tong was going to help us in this youth movement from the minors. McLean showing off, Tong having a strong first outing, and then to have that happen, it's just yeah. So down 6-0 to the Rangers in the top of the second. Brazovan comes in and just doesn't cover first on a ground ball to Pete. Pete hesitates, then he throws it. Brazovan's not looking, goes past him. That just encapsulates the 2025 season. It's just a microcosm of what the theme was for 2025. Just Brosman, do you care? Do you know? First of all, you're aware that you're supposed to go over to first. Do you care that you didn't go over? You can see the look on Alonso's face. He's just shaking his head. And that was just, that's the GIF. That's the snapshot, is just Alonso just shaking his head. Just completely. And we're in the second fucking inning. And it's basically the team's all right, this is over. Will Salmon at Will Salmon on X said the Mets have lost 7 games in a row. It's their third 7-game losing streak in 2025. The last time the Mets had 3 7-game losing streaks in one season was in 1980, the year I was born, 45 years ago. And spoiler alert, we did not make the playoffs in 1980. So, you have stuff like that thrown out, and you're we then lose 3-2 to the Rangers. This is another game where you feel like you had your spot, you had your opportunity, you had your chance, and you didn't come through. We were up 2-0 going into the top of the 8th. Ended up losing this game. Juan Soto 2 for 5 with a home run. Pete 2 for 5. Nimmo 2 for 5. We were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and we left 12 runners on base. Sproat gave you a hell of a performance. 6 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, 2 Ks, 0 walks, a 63 game score. And but then Rogers gives up two runs, 1 earned, and Diaz blows the save, gets the L. Quickly going back to the DeGrom thing, I mean, this is so Mets. I kind of glossed over it because I wanted to get to the stunning non-reaction from the crowd, but I completely forgot to mention that, Ryan Finkelstein pointed this out on X. The 6th spot that the Rangers put up in the first is already the most run support that Jacob DeGrom ever got at Citi Field. Bananas. Lime and Mets at Lime Mets said Rangers have already given DeGrom more run support in 10 minutes than we did his entire career with us, which is, oh man. If you're a free agent and you see that kind of shit, you're like, do I really need to go play for the Mets? Brett Hanfling at Brett_Hanfling on X said, crazy stat, Jacob DeGrom never got 4 runs of support in any of his career starts with the Mets. He just got 4 runs of support in the first inning in the first return to Citi Field as a Ranger. So, yeah, that's just so Mets, and that's why people are, I guess, upset. I don't know how you can be upset at Steve Cohen because he's doing more in his stint with the Mets as owner of the Mets than the Wilpons have done over a shorter period of time. He's done way more. It shows that he cares more. He's putting in more effort, blood, sweat, and tears. He wants to win a World Series so badly. So I don't know that I'm gonna, but it's like the stadium's haunted. We haven't completely exorcised the demons. We still got some weird juju and mojo going on in the building. And we have to, break out Joe Boo. We have to break out something. Get out the voodoo dolls and get rid of this hex, this curse that is just hovering over the stadium. It's still there, and we got to figure out a way to get it to just fucking, let's bring in the preachers and the pastors and get some exorcism going on in this bitch. Looking at this game, 3-2 loss. So bottom 5, you have runner on first, 1 out. Pete Alonso singles to he has the bloop hit that goes over second base. Francisco Lindor scores and advances on the error from the second baseman. So it's no RBI and an unearned run, but Alonso ends up going to second on that to break the scoreless to get on the scoreboard. And then top 8, no out. Tyler Rogers in. Tyler Rogers, usually Mr. Dependable. It's we're down 2-0. Runner on first. Wyatt Langford doubles to left on a line drive and scores a runner from third. So it's now 3-0. Oh no, sorry, we're up 2-0. Jesus Christ, Neil. 2-0. Rogers in. You figure we got this on lock. Rogers has been Mr. Automatic. We'll then get the save. Langford doubles to left, scores a run. It's now 2-1 top 8th with 2 outs. Runners on first and third. Rowdy Tellez on against Edwin Diaz gets the ground rule double. Langford scores. Jung goes to third. And then you have the top of the 9th. It's all tied up, 2-2, 2 outs, runner on second. Wyatt Langford yet again against Edward Diaz, singles to center and scores the go-ahead run. And then bottom 9, right? It's 3-2, 2 outs, runner on first and third. Nimmo's up against Sean Armstrong, and he strikes out swinging. Yet again, another example of inability to come through clutch. Just Mets at just_Mets said Pete Alonso has a .34 in 79 games since June 13th. I think it's the WAR from Fangraphs. For reference, Cedric Mullins has a .24 since being acquired by the Mets, which is, whoa. I don't believe that stat, but if true, big if true. John Harper at NYNJ Harper said brutally bad base running by Brett Beatty, getting picked off at second base with no outs. Second time this week he's been picked off, just can't happen. Yep, just not having the wherewithal. It's like, where is the urgency? Where is the focus, the concentration? It's just a lot of lackadaisical, sloppy play. Just Mets at just underscore Mets said the Mets have lost 8 straight games. They have fallen behind the Giants, who were trade deadline sellers to them. One of the most inexplicable, gutless stretches of baseball we have seen around here since 07-08. AT at Yankee WRLD, Yankee World. Interesting that he would post this, but Juan Soto's career 162 game averages, 36 home runs, 6.3 WAR. I believe that's the WAR according to Baseball Reference, and then a 160 OPS plus. So those are his full season averages. Juan Soto in 2025 is on pace for 40 home runs and 6.6 WAR, 161 OPS plus. Soto, slow start, not great with runners in scoring position, came on real hard and strong and fast and hot towards the end of the season. There are only 3 players to accomplish this stat line in a season, according to Codify at Codify Baseball. 3 players have done this in a single season. Well, there have been 3 seasons where this has happened. 2 players have accomplished it. 40 plus home runs, 32 or more stolen bases, and 118 or more stolen walks in a season. So there's only 2 players to have done it over 3 seasons, in 3 single seasons. Barry Bonds in 96, Barry Bonds in 97, Juan Soto in 2025. And that won't be the only time that you see a stat where Soto is doing Barry Bonds things. Mike Mayer at Mike Mayer 22 said Juan Soto is the 13th. Juan Soto is only the 13th player in Major League Baseball history with a 40 home run and 30 stolen base season, 40-30 season, joining Hank Aaron, Ronald Acuna Jr., Jeff Bagwell, Barry Bonds, Ryan Braun, Ellis Burks, Jose Canseco, Shohei Ohtani, Alex Rodriguez, Alfonso Soriano, Larry Walker, and Christian Yelich. I had a great trivia question for my friend who's a Red Sox fan. I asked him, I said, hey, there are only 13 players in Major League Baseball history with a season hitting 40 home runs and 30 stolen bases. 2 of them are former Red Sox, or 2 of them were Red Sox. So the way I worded it kind of threw him off, but I like how I worded it. Were Red Sox. And the 2 were Ellis Burks and Jose Canseco. They did not do it with the Red Sox. Burks did it with the Rockies, and Canseco did it with the A's, but they both played for the Red Sox, so no one gives a shit. Mike Mayer at Mike Mayer 22. Here's a list of so that's the same stat. Way to go, Neil. Way to go. Matthew Bronstein at M Brownstein 89 on X said Juan Soto is the first Met in franchise history to record at least 40 home runs and 30 stolen bases in a season. Were there some clutch situations where you want him to come through with runners in scoring position? If he had, earlier on the season, if he had done that, would we be in the playoffs right now? We wouldn't be doing a season recap. Yeah. But all in all, I'll take what he gave us. And you'll see once we get to his stats in terms of overall and league-wide and within franchise history, he had the best season of his fucking career, just about. So, and he's only 27. Great season, and that's kind of like what we're hoping for each season. If he can give us that, we should be in a good position. And then on September 14th, Anthony DeComo at Anthony DeComo on X said the history the Mets will be trying to avoid today at Citi Field. No Mets team has ever lost 9 straight games and still made the playoffs. The 1999 Mets dropped 8 in a row from over the course of May and June, plus another 7 straight in September before making it all the way to the NLCS. Yeah, that 99 season was bananar, dude. There's another stat down here that I think Michael Barron gave us, which was crazy about that 99 team. So we win 5-2 in a walk-off win in the 10th. Jock Peterson for the Rangers, 2 for 2, 2 RBIs, 2 walks. Again, when we did our free agent rundown in the offseason, the last offseason, I was kind of, I don't know if I was fully on board, but I was like, we should go after Jock Peterson. And we ended up with Jesse Winker, and we saw how that played out. But I was like, Jock Peterson is your lefty DH? I like it. And he comes back to burn us here. Alonso was 1 for 4, 3 ribbies. Nimmo had a home run. Soto had an RBI. We were even if we got the win, but we were still 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. We left 8 guys on base. McLean gave us another solid outing. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 walks, 7 Ks, 67 game score. Again, average is 50. Reed Garrett did have his 7th blown save. I think this is where, Garrett really struggled, and that's and ended up having, the arm issue that ended his season. So, again, is that a case of like he's not communicating that to the pitching staff? The pitching staff is aware of it, but like, what are our alternatives? What are other options? Anyone else we put in there would do just as poorly? So again, is that mismanagement, lack of communication? What is it? But Reed Garrett was like borderline all-star in the first half of the season and pitched really well last season. So it was very weird to see him just kind of decompose in August and September. So top of the 6, in terms of top plays, top of the 6, you have Noah McLean. Are we down 1-0? Our score is 1-0. Runners on first and third, only 1 out, and McLean gets Josh Jung to ground into a double play. Huge, huge, huge. We might have been down 1-0 here. Yeah, I think we were down 1-0 or up 1-0. I don't know. So McLean induces the ground ball double play. Awesome. Top of the 7th. This is when Peterson has the single to right that scores 2 and advances the guy to third with the bases loaded against Reed Garrett. Top 9, it's now 2-2, all tied up, 1 out, runner on third, Josh Smith. Edwin Diaz gets the double play, a line out, weak line out to shortstop. And Lindor is able to turn it, so get out of the inning there with the score tied, which was huge. And then bottom of the 10th, no outs, score tied up, runners on first and second, and Pete goes deep off Luis Carvalho. Fly ball to deep right field. And then top 10, Stanek comes in and locks it down. So in the top of the inning, Stanek gets Aldalis Garcia to strike out swinging with a guy on first and third, which was huge. And then Pete hits the game winner 3-run home run in the bottom of the 10th. No, Underdog MLB at Underdog MLB said Nolan McLean has the lowest ERA through 6 career starts in Mets history. Only Nolan Ryan and Matt Harvey have more Ks. But then Just Baseball at JustBB_media said Nolan McLean is the only pitcher in Major League Baseball history with an ERA below 1.2 and 40 or more strikeouts in their first 6 career starts, which feels like those are conflicting. It just said Nolan Ryan and Matt Harvey had more Ks through their first 6 career starts, and now they're saying only pitcher in Major League Baseball history. I don't know. Oh, because their ERA was higher. Got it. So that makes sense. Yeah. We got there. Metstup Podcast at Metstup said Nolan McLean's 1.19 ERA is the lowest for any starting pitcher that has pitched at least 30 innings this season. Anthony DiComo said, and so here's the breakdown of the lowest ERA through 6 career starts in Mets history. We have Tyler McGill at 2.1, Dylan G at 2.09, Nolan Ryan at 1.98, Terry Leach at 1.73, and then Nolan McLean at 1.19 by a healthy margin. So, at MLB said Nolan McLean is the first Mets pitcher ever to begin his career with 6 consecutive starts of 5 or more innings pitched and 2 runs or fewer. Yeah, we got a good one in McLean. Now the challenge is, okay, you did that over 8 games. Can you do it over 30 games? Can you do this 30 starts with those same exact numbers? Probably not. I know he was still pitching. It's not like he didn't pitch for the first 4 months. He was pitching down the minor league level for that time. But can he sustain 30 big league starts? And if, you don't have to give us a 1.19 ERA, my guy, over 30 starts would be nice. But if you can give us a 3-something ERA, even a 4, we'll fucking take it, dude, because this offense is stacked. Listen, the offense did not, it didn't really meet my expectations. It was still one of the better offenses we've had, but it could have been the best of all time if you look back at when I after Juan Soto signed, I was like, holy shit, look at this lineup. Well, this is the most potent, powerful lineup we've ever had in Mets franchise history. And it went down 1 through 9, and then included, like, we have 2 or 3 guys on the bench who can come in and also do well, or rotate in that can also do well, like a Marte, Winker, etc. And we fell short of those expectations. Like Alonso, check. Soto, check. Lindor, check. Nimmo, check, because Nimmo had career highs across the board, even though, people have their issues with him not coming up in big spots. I get it, and it's justified. But coming in the season, I was like, 1 through 9, this is a hugely powerful, potent lineup. You have 6 guys that could hit 20 plus home runs, 25 plus home runs. The problem became Vientos got hurt and underperformed. Like, it's just weird to say, but I guess, yeah, he underperformed in terms of expectations. In the time that he played offensively, he had some really good spurts there, really good windows and stretches, but overall fell short of expectations because you expected him to be. I thought that he was going to be the everyday starting third baseman or the DH and give us 25 to 30 home runs. Francisco Alvarez is another guy that underperformed, where you thought, okay, he's going to do what he did in 2023. He's going to give us 20 plus 25 home runs. He got hurt. I'm not going to knock him because he battled through a lot of fucking injuries, dude. My God, his hands. I'm trying to think of like what movie or TV show I'm thinking of, but like, it just like he holds up his hands and they're just like mangled hands. But he went through so many goddamn injuries and he was just getting beat up behind the dish. So those 2 players underperformed. One because of injury, like both because of injuries, but the expectation was 20, 25 plus home runs from both those guys, and instead you got less than 20 out of both. Alvarez obviously came on hot towards the end of the season, but it's like, where was Vientos towards the end of the season? It was wild. And we're still talking about September, and it was like, since July and August, over the past 2 months leading up to mid-September, Vientos was pretty red hot. But you wouldn't know it just by watching him like in the field, and just seemed like, I don't know if it's just his demeanor, but we've seen him be fiery and fired up, and then to not have that same kind of energy in such a hugely crucial period of the season is like a little weird. We stranded 5 runners on base over the first 2 innings, which is, that happened a lot, where it's like I think it happened against Alcantara, against the Marlins in Miami. It's happened multiple times where it's like we're getting guys on base to start the game, and we're looks like we're going to get out to a big early lead, strong early lead, and we either come away with nothing or a run. And it's like, man, and you could hear it from the booth. Man, that inning had so much potential to blow wide open and to give us a nice cushion and padding for our starter to allow him to operate a little more loosely, and just wasn't able to convert. Carson at MW Cars on X said, Senga option to AAA, Manea still injured, moved to bullpen. Peterson laboring in the second half. Clay Holmes can barely get out of the 5th. Griffin Canning ruptured Achilles. Tyler McGill stinks after April, got injured. Montas injured again, and then end of season. So that's the story here. Obviously the clutch hitting would have been nice if they came through once when trailing in the 8th or after. That's a big part of it, but the pitching was just not there and was not sustainable. Matthew Brownstein at mbrownstein89 said most seasons with 25 plus home runs and 30 plus stolen bases in Mets history. Francisco Lindor has now done it twice. Ironic that it's in 2023 and 2025, the 2 seasons we did not make the playoffs. And then Hojo, my guy, did it 3 times, if you were paying attention. Love Howard Johnson. SNY said, relayed this quote from the post-game interview. This is Pete Alonso getting interviewed by Michelle Margot. He said, I felt like I was surfing on top of a dragon there. I was sick. And that was kind of like reminiscent of what you would have seen in 2024, where it's like you have the quote, it takes off, there's dragons everywhere in the next home game, and we run with it, and all of a sudden it's, Grimace and the Rizzler and Glizz Dog and Candelita and OMG, and that was that. That was like one night that people like were getting on board with that, but it just didn't consume us, didn't really carry us. So September 14th, at that point, the Mets' pace of 83 wins would match the second lowest for a playoff team in the wild card era, and it turns out, well, the Reds would end up with the same amount of wins as us. We hit the 83 win mark projection right on the dot, and didn't make the playoffs because the Reds owned the tiebreaker. So Dom Hamill became the 46th different pitcher used by the Mets in the season. That was a new Major League Baseball record. That was a franchise record. The Rangers coming into that series were 77-70. And at third place in the AL West, they were 2.5 games back in the division, a very tightly competitive division. They finished 81-81. They went 2-10 in their final 12. So Tigers collapsing, Rangers collapsing. The Mets were not alone in that area. The Astros were collapsing. Mets ended up moving Sean Manaea to the bullpen during this time, which proved to be the smart move, and just didn't stick to that conviction. Again, that's a managerial staff thing where it's like, why did you deviate from that? Why? We then have the 3-game home set against the Padres. Took 2 of 3 out of there. Looked pretty strong. Those were some big wins in terms of keeping us alive in the wild card. In that first game on the 16th, we win 8-3. This was the introduction of the piggyback, and it friggin' worked. Holmes went 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned, 1 walk, 2 Ks. Manaea comes in, pitches 5 innings, gives up 4 hits, 1 earned, 4 Ks. Now, the downside is you've now eliminated 2 of your starters. Okay, but it worked. Why would you fuck with that? Why did you fuck with that down the stretch? We ended up getting 5 runs in the first, 2 more in the second. Lindor was 2 for 3 with 2 runs and an RBI and a home run. Pete 2 for 4, 2 runs, an RBI and a home run. Nimmo 2 for 4, a run and an RBI. McNeil 1 for 1, a run and 2 RBIs and a double. Beatty 1 for 3 with a run, 2 RBIs and a home run. This is when the offense is clicking like this. It's like, it doesn't matter how the pitching's doing. Mullins even got into the action, 1 for 4 with a home run. Michael King went 3 innings, giving up 10 hits, 8 earned, only 2 strikeouts and 4 home runs. There are some people saying that we should go after him in the offseason. It's like, if this is the indication, I don't know. 9-17 the next day, we lost 7-4. We had the big 4-run inning, or the Padres had that big 4-run inning in the top of the 5th that murdered us. The big blow came on Manny Machado's grand slam. He was 3 for 5 with 4 ribbies. Soto, Alonso, Marte, and Alvarez all had solo shots. Nick Pivetta, who just started the game 1 wild card, game 1 against the Cubs. During this game, he went 4 2/3, 7 hits, 3 earned, 5 Ks, 3 home runs. Peterson went 5 innings, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, 1 K, 1 home run. So Peterson, this is like with each start getting worse and worse. The next day, 9-18, we win 6-1. We hit a big 3rd inning, scoring 4 during that frame. Pete was 1 for 2, 2 runs, 2 RBIs and a home run. Nimmo 1 for 3, 1 run, 3 RBIs and a 3-run home run. Randy Vasquez only went 2 1/3 innings for the Padres, 4 earned runs. Tong, nice little bounce back game here. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks, 0 earned runs, 65 game score. So that's huge for Jonah. And the booth pointed that out, especially Ron Darling. Like, to come back after getting shellacked against the Rangers and having one of the worst outings you'll ever see and experience, and then to go up against a very potent Padres offense and to come away with that stat line was huge. The Friars were 82-68 coming into that series against the Metros, and they ended up 7-2 after the series. So, yeah, they really picked up the pace after that and pulled away in the wild card. We gained ground, and it was just lost ground. Mike Mayer 22 said, players in Mets history to homer in 4 straight games: David Wright, Ron Swoboda, Darryl Strawberry, Dom Smith, Jeff McNeil, Lee Mazzilli, Dave Kingman, Curtis Granderson, Larry Elliott, never heard of him, John Buck. Oh my God, I remember that stretch by John Buck in April of 2013, I want to say. 2012, 2013. I think it was 2012. Maybe it was 2013. Catcher for John. I mean, we were doing, I think I went to a game and we were doing MVP chants for John Buck. It was absurd. Bobby Bowe, Edgardo Alfonso did it once. Mike Piazza did it twice. Pete Alonso has done it 3 times now, where he's homered in 4 straight games. Richard Hidalgo did it in a team regular season record, 5 straight games. Was that 99 or 2000 that we had him? And then Daniel Murphy obviously did it in 6 straight postseason games, which is the team record in the postseason. So Pete getting hot and warming up. So I'd imagine his WAR is not as bad as Cedric Mullins anymore. Pete Alonso reached the 120 RBI plateau for the 3rd time in his career. It ties Nolan Arenado for the most among active players. I don't know. You read stats like that and you're like, why would you want to move on from Pete Alonso? Juan Soto and Pete Alonso have become only the 2nd teammates in Mets history to each have a season of 35 home runs and 100 RBIs. The first duo to do it were the Loses, the Carloses, Carlos Delgado and Carlos Beltran in 2006. There are only 2 players in Major League Baseball history to have 41 or more home runs, 32 or more stolen bases, and 118 or more walks in a season. Barry Bonds in 96, Juan Soto in 2025. And then the youngest Mets with a start of 8 or more strikeouts, no walks, no earned runs allowed. Doc Gooden on September 12th, 1984, when he was 19 years old. Doc Gooden, September 6th, 1985, when he was 20 years old. And then Jonah Tong at 22 years old on September 18th. Very encouraging shit for Jonah Tong. So you'd have to imagine, would love for him to be part of the starting rotation in 2026. With the Mets badly needing wings, I mean, we all need wings. When do you not need wings? Of course, there's a wing shortage right now. The quality of wings, not great. With the Mets badly needing wins, the 3 rookies, Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, and Jonah Tong, combined to give 17 innings pitched, 15 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, and 18 Ks during this little stretch that we went on. And then, so 2 or 3 for the Padres. Padres, better record than us, have a higher wild card seed. You come out at home and you take 2 or 3 from the Padres, you're feeling good. And all those good feelings go right out the door after you lose 2 or 3 to the Nationals at home. I mean, just so wildly important to get the sweep there. And, you know, a lot of people pointing back to the series and saying this is the one that really did us in. And it's like, well, there are plenty of, like I've been saying this whole episode, there are plenty of opportunities for us to get right. Shoulda, woulda, couldas. This one is the one that really killed you. Really killed you. Losing 5-3 in 11 innings, and then losing 3-2, just can't happen. You know, on the 19th, we win 12-6. We got 6 runs in the bottom of the 4th. Lindor 3 for 4, 4 runs and an RBI. Soto 2 for 3, 2 runs, 3 RBIs and a home run. Nimmo 2 for 5, 2 RBIs and a run. Marte 2 for 5, 1 run and an RBI. Alvarez 1 for 4, 1 run, 2 RBIs. Andrew Alvarez, the Washington Nationals pitcher, went 3 1/3, 7 hits, 6 runs, 4 earned, 1 walk, 4 Ks. We got 2 earned runs off Poulin and 3 earned runs off Mason Thompson, the last Nationals pitcher we faced. Sproat did not have a great game here. He went 4 innings, 4 hits, 4 earned, 2 walks, 5 Ks, only 71 pitches. He had all 4 of his earned runs came in the top of the 3rd, and he had a 41 game score. I think there were plenty of people that were like, given how many innings your bullpen has pitched and how many relievers we've gone through, Sproat's only at 71 pitches. Why not just let him tackle the 5th? I don't know. John Harper said, had to go back and watch the top of the 4th, but after a rough 3rd that included bad defense, Sproat was commanding his 2-seamer, had an easy inning with 2 Ks. Not sure why he was out of the game at that point after 71 pitches, other than that 3rd time around thing. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, a situation where Mendoza maybe has too quick of a hook and maybe has too much faith in his bullpen, but why do you have the faith in your bullpen again? After they've had to go through and have gone through so many relievers and have so many innings pitched. They're so tired and spent. Why not just Sproat's a young guy? You're not gonna like ruin his career by letting him take the fifth and as Harper mentioned, to end the fourth with 2 Ks. It's not like he was getting hit or knocked around. This is the point in the season where Helsley decided to actually play well. He had 3 straight scoreless outings for the first time since the Mets acquired him. During that time span, Francisco Lindor was the first shortstop in Major League history with 4 seasons of 25 or more home runs and 25 or more stolen bases. And this is the 3rd straight season he's done that. 4 Silver Sluggers, 2 Gold Glove Awards, and I didn't even know this was a thing. He won the American League Platinum Glove Award in 2016. So Lindor doing his part. Not so great in the field this season. I feel like he kind of had some letdowns in the field, but Juan Soto has 17 home runs at that point, had 17 home runs over his last 40 games. His 42nd home run also came on the 19th. That was set a new career high. Again, we keep going back to this stat, but it bears repeating. There have only been 2 seasons in Major League Baseball history where players had 42 home runs, 30 stolen bases, and 120 walks. Barry Bonds in 96, Juan Soto in 2025. So we have like peak prime Barry Bonds playing for us. Barry Bonds ends up going to the World Series. Did he end up winning in 2002? I think he did. So it feels like it's in the cards. Just feels like it's in the cards. It doesn't feel like a Mike Trout situation where it's like he's just going to put up monster numbers and the Angels are going to squander it and not do anything with it and still lose. It doesn't feel like that. It feels more akin to Bonds having success on the Giants. Sarah Langs at Slangs on Sports said most games with at least a home run and a walk before turning 27. You have Mike Trout with 105, Eddie Matthews 106, Jimmy Fox 114, Mickey Mantle 115, and Juan Soto with 118 games with at least a home run and a walk before turning 27. We got a good one, you guys. He's worth every penny. I'm telling you. Next day, September 20th, 5-3 loss in 11 innings. Washington scores 2 in the top of the 11th to win it. Dalen Lyle, who's a rookie, 2 for 5, a run, 3 RBIs. Mark Vientos had a 2-run double as a pinch hitter. Soto went 2 for 5 with an RBI. We were 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. We left 13 runners on base. We got to Jose A. Ferrer early on. He only pitched 2 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, 4 Ks. He blew his 3rd save. Nolan McLean gave us 5 innings, 5 hits, 1 walk, 3 Ks, 59 game score, so above average. But he only threw 76 pitches. Again, that feels like a situation where it's like just run him out in the 6th and see what we got. Tyler Rogers gave up the home run. The bottom 8, right? It's 3-0. Vientos doubles the left to score Nimmo and Marte to make the game 3-2. You then move to the bottom of the 9th, where you have we're down 3-2, 1 out, runners on first and second, and Soto singles to center to score Siri. Lindor goes to second, and then bottom of the 9th, 1 out, bases juiced. And you've probably seen this screenshot going around. Brandon Nomo's up against Jose A. Ferrer. Scores tied, 1 out, bases juiced. Nimmo strikes out swinging. You just cannot have that fucking happen. Here's another situation where another opportunity. Bottom 10. Scores tied up. Runners on first and second. Francisco Alvarez. There's no outs. Francisco Alvarez grounds into a double play. Marte goes to third, and you now have 2 outs. And of course, we don't get him in. So again, it was right there to win the game. And then top of the 11th, tie score, 1 out, runner on first. Dalen Lyle hits the inside park home run off Tyler Rogers. Son of a B. Yeah. Juan Soto has the most years with 120 more walks before a player's age 27 season. He's done it 5 times. Eddie Yost did it 4 times. Bryce Harper, Jim Thome, Frank Thomas, Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, and Babe Ruth. What a lineup. They all did that twice. Most career seasons with 25 or more home runs and 120 or more walks. Barry Bonds has 11, Ruth 10, Williams 8, Soto 5. You have to think that he'll probably be able to come close to topping that once it's all said and done. What a fucking roller coaster this season has been, or was. We had the best record in baseball, 45-24 over the first 69 games. We then went 3-14 over our next 17, 14-6 over our next 20, 2-14 over our next 16, 12-7 over our next 19, 0-8 over the next 8, and then we were 4-1 over the last 5 games when they put up that graphic, September 19th or 20th. Nolan McLean is the only pitcher in StatHead's database to record 45 or more strikeouts while allowing fewer than 7 earned runs in his first 7 career games since the earned run became official in both leagues in 1913. Holy shit. And Nolan McLean is also the first starter in Major League Baseball history to begin the career with 7-game streak of at least 5 innings pitched and at least 5 strikeouts and no more than 2 earned runs allowed. You're not penciling him in to the starting rotation in 2026. You just have to hope that he's able to sustain it and maintain it over a full season. That'll be the key. But at this point, he's your ace. He's your number 1 guy going into 2026. Dan Bartles said, weird decision to pull Edwin Diaz after 7 pitches ended up costing the Mets with an inside the park homer an inning later. Yeah, I agree. Again, it's another Mendoza decision, right? This is not a game you're playing in April, May, June, July. Like, this is the season's on the line. Your lead in the wild card race for the last spot is tentative at best, very fragile. Diaz is your best reliever, hands down, and you pull him after 7 pitches. It's like, this is a must-win game, dude. They're all must-win games. Why are you having him come in during a 5-0 game, but you're not keeping him in when it's 7 pitches and the game's tied? Or I don't know. Just really confusing type decision-making from Mendoza. Jake Brown pointed out the obvious. No bunt with Francisco Alvarez. He grounds into a double play. Mauricio flies out. That would have been a sac fly to win the game. Diaz, 7 pitches taken out. Rogers in for 3rd straight day. Mullins misplays it off the wall. 2-run inside the park home run. Mets facing a loss that should not happen. Can't happen. I mean, it's the little things, dude. And it's the attention to detail. And it's something that I've criticized Brian Daboll, Giants head coach, for his lack of discipline and not being detail-oriented. I think the same can be said for Carlos Mendoza, at least in this season. It's just like not. And maybe that comes with the territory of being a new manager or head coach, where it's like, now that you've been in those situations, you know better, hopefully, and you lesson learned, and you're going to take that into 2026 and make better decisions. But fucking A, dude. We have to get over our ego. Obviously, you're not going to have Juan Soto bunt a guy over. Lindor doesn't seem like he's above it. Lindor seems like, especially if he's struggling and slumping, he'll bunt to get a guy over. But like a lot of these other guys in the lineup that are not, if you are not named Pete Alonso or Juan Soto, brush up on your bunting skills. Brush up on your sac fly skills. Brush up on that shit, because it is absolutely 100% necessary to win games and get in the playoffs and be successful. Those Ben Yole said those at-bats by Nimmo and Marte were not great. Mets blew a golden opportunity to win the game there. Yep. And then we drop another one the next day, 3-2. This is the example of like, why did Mendoza do this? He did the reverse piggyback. So we had the piggyback that worked so well the first time around, where Holmes starts, Manaea comes in, Holmes 4 innings, Manaea 5 innings. They hold the fort, are able to do their thing. This time he starts Manaea and then has Holmes coming in. Stupid. Manaea ended up going 3 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, 3 Ks, 1 home run, 42 game score. And then Holmes goes 3 2/3, 4 hits, 3 Ks on 57 pitches. It's just like, it worked. Why did you do? Is that overthinking it? Probably. Nasim Nunez, Washington national shortstop, went 2 for 4 with a run and 2 RBIs. Home run. Lindor had a home run. Mullins got an RBI. We were 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position, and we left 6 dudes on base. Jake Irwin, Nationals pitcher, had an ERA close to 6, and we could not figure him out. 5 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks, and a home run. That's just, that's just like another case of, yeah, maybe we don't deserve to go to the playoffs. The fact that we're playing a sub 500 team, one of the worst teams in baseball, one of the 5 worst teams in baseball, going up against a pitcher who has an ERA over 6, and we muster 2 runs. Just Mets at just_Mets said the Nationals are one of the worst teams in baseball, and the Mets have fallen behind by 3 runs in every game of the series at home with everything on the line. Yeah, it's inexcusable. In terms of runs allowed over the last 18 games up to that point on September 21st, Codify released this stat, which was nuts. The Guardians, every other team except the Guardians allowed 65 or more runs, right? Twins had the most with 119 runs allowed. Rockies are next with 118, Angels 110, Nationals 106, and then right below the Nationals, the frickin' Mets 94. I mean, you're looking at a lot of these other teams, and they're mostly not in the playoffs. Reds 85 runs allowed, Yankees 86 runs allowed, Tigers 93 runs allowed. Tigers collapsing, Yankees just have a really dominant offense. Reds are the Reds. But the Guardians, dude, 28 runs allowed in 18 games. It's a major reason why they took over and won the division. But you say that, and then it looks like they're 1 game away from being eliminated in the wild card by the Tigers, who they caught and passed. Mets Muse at Mets Muse said, coincidentally enough, Sean Monae's 2 best outings this season were when he was a reliever. Of course, that means we continue to trot him out as a starter, watch him get shelled, and then wonder why we don't win games. Tyler at Wardy NYM on X said, wow, it's almost like starting Sean Manaea, who's been batting practice pretty much every single start this season, wasn't the brightest idea today. Yes, let's take his best outing yet as a reliever and follow that up by taking him right out of the long man role. Brilliant. Just Mets said Lindor throws the ball away. Mullins stands on first base while the ball is loose on the field for a year. Alonso boofs a simple play. This is how the Mets are playing versus a last-place team at home in the final week of the season. Just Mets said death taxes the Mets offense being completely shut down by a guy with an ERA over 9 over the last 2 months. John Harper at Citi Field today for the final regular season home game. Nationals take a 3-0 lead in the second off Manaea. Jake Irvin, Nationals pitcher, has a whopping 9.36 ERA in his last 7 starts and has surrendered 34 earned runs during that span. We just could not get on the board. Rich McLeod said the Mets got robbed of a game-tying 9th inning home run. This was the play where it's like most Mets fans are like, yeah, we're not doing anything this year. We're not making the playoffs, and we're not going far in the playoffs if we do. Because to have this kind of catch happen against you, that's just the baseball gods saying, doing the old Dikembe Mutombo finger wag. No. You guys aren't making the playoffs. Ryan Finkelstein, the kick save catch makes me feel like the season is over because this team has to be hexed for that shit to have happened. Yeah. Dude goes up, gets his glove on it, ball comes out, somehow kicks it with his foot up to himself to catch it. And it's just like, wow. So at that point, the Mets had lost 11 of the last 15 games. And the collapse was fully on. The Nationals were 62-91 coming into that series, having just suffered a 4-game sweep to Atlanta at home, and then went 2-4 after that series. So, I mean, you want to talk about bad luck, misfortune, horrible timing. Nationals just could have done what they did before and after that series, the same kind of performance, and we would have been fine. Said they take 2 or 3 from us. Whew. So on 22nd, this was an off day, but people had some thoughts. Just Mets said the Mets went 12-17 in their final 29 home games of the season. Nearly half of those games were against teams below 500. So you can't blame the schedule. I mean, and we had one of the better records at home this season, and to come up play that poorly at home against bad teams, it's like, broken record, dude. We didn't deserve to go in the playoffs. Michael Barron said, I've seen this franchise come back from the dead before. In 1999, the Mets were 2.5 games out with 3 to go. They took care of business, things broke right, and they got all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS that year. So even when saying they don't deserve to go to the playoffs, They could, if they just get in, maybe things do turn even at this point. After all that's been said and done, after all the shit baseball that they've played, it's still right there. And there's precedence that they could go on a run, but just couldn't pull it together and figure it out. And of course, the Marlins spoiled our season again. No matter, it seems like every time that we got a good positive win, which felt like, okay, this is momentum shifting. The Rangers walk-off win, 2-3 from the Padres. Like every time that would happen, there's just this immediate letdown afterwards. But every time that we had something like that happen, my eyes would go, I would load up the schedule and I would look at that 3-game set against the Marlins and I'd be like, that is where our hopes and dreams get crushed. Every time we had something good happen, we're like, we're going to go on a streak and we're going to turn it around and we're going to turn it on. And I would just look at that 3-game set against the Marlins in Miami and be like, fuck, it's going to come down to that. And history has dictated that it's not going to work out well for us. So we just do not hit lefties. We were really bad against lefties. 782 OPS versus right-handed pitching, 691 OPS versus left-handed pitching. And our rotation ERA was 5.12, which was at the time ranked 26th. So we go into this 3-game set against the Cubs in Chicago, and it's like, fuck. This is where it officially ends. And then we come out and we have one of the biggest, if not the best win of the season on September 23rd against the Cubs in Chicago. 9-7 win. We were down 5-1 after 2 innings. We score 5 in the 5th and 2 more in the 8th. Lindor was 2 for 5 with 3 ribbies and a home run. Nimmo with a monster, huge clutch home run. 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs. And then Alvarez with a bigger clutch home run. 1 for 3, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, and a home run. Ian Happ and Carlos Santana each had 2 ribbies apiece for the Cubbies. Peterson, holy shit. An inning and a third. 5 hits, 5 earned, 2 walks, 1 K, a 23-game score. One of the worst outings of the season and of his career. Tyler Rogers blew a save. We did get to Soraka with 2 earned runs and another 2 earned runs off Caleb Thielbar. Bottom of the first, you had Carlos Santana getting the double to right to score Horner and Kelly for the Cubs. Then in the top of the 5th, it's 6-3 Cubbies, Nimmo off Tyler Rogers. This was the Rogers Bowl. This was the Twin Sanity Bowl because Taylor Rogers comes in for the Cubs. Nimmo hits the 3-run home run to deep right field, scoring Soto and Alonso, all unearned runs too. Bottom 6 is when Seiya Suzuki, dude, singles to center. Horner scores, App goes to second off Tyler Rogers. And then, I guess top 6, you had Lindor single to center, which scored McNeil, tied it up. I know we went ahead. Sorry, we went ahead 7-6 there. Suzuki then ties it up in the bottom of the 6th, and then in the top of the 8th, Alvarez hits the 2-run ding dong to put us ahead 9-7. So off Caleb Thielbar. A lot of people were criticizing Clay Holmes. Good Fundies Brian said, if you're going to claim that Clay Holmes was a bad signing at $12.6 million annual AV, when he's already given us a 3.69 ERA over almost 160 innings and a 1.7 WAR, because he's been bad lately, I'm going to completely dismiss everything else you say. Yeah, I mean, that's a hard, strong stance to take, but yeah, I don't think that was a bad signing at all. I mean, given the state of pitching, he was our most dependable, reliable pitcher for the entire season. Juan Soto misplayed that ball in the first inning that almost cost us. It resulted in 2 runs. That had a 17% hit probability per StatCast. And then Peterson, just to show how much he really struggled down the stretch over his last 9 starts, he had an 8.42 ERA. He had a 12.54 ERA in his last 5 starts. Oof. And it's kind of crazy to think that the dude was an all-star this year. He surpassed his career high in innings pitched. He deserved to get the all-star nomination, but his ERA was 6.34 following the all-star break. McNeil committed 2 errors in as many plays. allowed an unearned run to score, just playing really sloppy in a must-win game. Juan Soto is the only player in Mets history to record 20-plus home runs and 20-plus stolen bases at home in a season. It's also just the 10th time in StatHead's database that a player has recorded 20-plus home runs and 20-plus stolen bases at home in a season. John Harper said huge respect for Alvarez. Went to Syracuse without a complaint, came back a better hitter, played through injuries, deserved the moment. Nimmo's home run was even bigger in some ways, getting Mets back in the game, giving them life. No Mets club has had more players with 25 or more home runs in a season than the 2025 team with 4. Soto, Alonso, Lindor, and Nimmo. Again, that's what I called coming into the season. I said Nimmo has the potential to do 25 or more home runs. It's like not going to be a letdown if he doesn't, but the fact that we were able to get that and still come away with 83 wins and missing the playoffs sucks. Sarah Lang said that Juan Soto has 25 stolen bases since the All-Star break, 4 more than anyone else in the majors. Mike Mayer said Edwin Diaz struck out 5 of 6 tonight, picking up a 2-inning save. His ERA this season is down to 1.73. You know, Pat Ragazzo says that this game doesn't get them on a roll. I don't know what will. And it's like, yeah, Pat, right there with you, bud. Michael Barron said first comeback win down by 5 or more runs all season. And Mets bullpen was phenomenal. 7 2/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned, 3 walks, 10 Ks. Issue is you kind of blew your load. Like, that's what sucks. It's like great effort by the bullpen, but now you're taxed for the next game. And it showed. We lost 10-3 the next game. We allowed 5 runs in the third, only mustered 4 hits. Alvarez had 2 RBIs and a home run. Soto had a solo home run. We got 0 runners into scoring position. What the fuck? 6 Cub players had RBIs. Tong only went, this is you want to talk about roller coaster season. It's been for the Mets team as a whole, it's especially a roller coaster-y for Jonah Tong. Shelled by the Rangers, comes back with a great game, and then shelled against the Cubs again. 2 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, a K. Matthew Bond, who ended up starting Game 1 for the Cubbies against the Padres in the wild card series, went 5 1/3 innings, 2 earned, 3 Ks, 1 walk, 1 homer. Sleeper Mets pointed out that Clay Holmes didn't cover home. Francisco Alvarez walked to the ball. Where's the urgency? Wholeheartedly agree. This is like playoff type atmosphere where your season is in the balance on the line and guys are just moving around and you're acting like it's April or May. It's like, step it up. Opta Stats, they have such great stats. Here's another one that they posted. The Mets lost 7 straight in June, lost 7 straight again in August, lost 8 straight in September. The only team in Major League Baseball history to have 3 separate 7 or more game losing streaks and still make the playoffs was the 2006 Cardinals, who went on to win the World Series that year. I want to be out. I want to be 100% out and just not have to stress or worry and be like, but then you have like the little 1%, the 2006 Cardinals, the 2023 Rangers. It's just like, the 99 Mets. You're like, I want to give up. But you gotta believe. Rich McLeod said this baseball team had their best win of the entire season last night, referencing the 9-7 come from behind win, and followed up with a totally uncompetitive loss, and 10-3 loss. Brandon Nimmo hit career highs at this point, 25 home runs, 91 RBIs. We designated Jose Siri for assignment. I mean, my buddy was throwing out some crazy stats that Siri had. He was like 1 for 12 with 11 strikeouts or something like that. He was hitting Pete Alonso's batting average was almost higher than Jose Siri's OPS. Just historically bad baseball from Jose Siri. But we did activate Tyrone Taylor to play center field, and it paid off big time because the next day on the 25th, we went 8-5. Beatty went 2 for 4 with 2 runs, 3 RBIs, and a home run. Tyrone Taylor in his game back, again, was performing well in rehab in the minors and continued that at the major league level. Taylor went 2 for 4, 2 RBIs and with a double. Lindor, Vientos, Nimmo added RBIs. Seiya Suzuki, my God, Cubs right fielder, went 2 for 4, 2 runs, 4 RBIs, 2 home runs. McLean, 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 earned, 2 walks, 11 Ks, and a 47 game score. He just had, that one bad inning. Bullpen was flawless again. Rarely struck out the side. We got to Shota Imanaga, who went 5 2/3, 9 hits, 8 earned, 1 walk, 3 Ks, 2 home runs. A career high 11 strikeouts for Nolan McLean. In terms of most strikeouts by a Mets pitcher in his first 8 career games, you have Nolan Ryan with 64, Doc Gooden with 59, and Nolan McLean with 57. And this is the tweet, the post I mentioned earlier. This is from Mets Batflip at Mets Batflip1 on X. Ryan Helsley over his last 5 appearances, 6 innings pitched, 0 ERA, 5 strikeouts, 2 hits, 2 walks. If the Mets get into the postseason, he's making a real push to show that he can be trusted again. Is that enough? It's kind of a small sample size. Is it enough to say, yeah, let's bring him back? I don't know. Especially with like $8 million plus per year. Brooks Raley has been sensational for the Mets since returning from Tommy John. 2.25 ERA and 0.79 WHIP. Lefties are batting just 107 against him with a slash line of 107, 219, 143. That's like huge. A 30-30 season by a shortstop has happened only 8 times in Major League Baseball history, and Francisco Lindor has 2 of them. Bobby Witt Jr. also has 2. So half of those seasons has come from Francisco Lindor and Bobby Witt Jr. Lindor and Soto join an exclusive club of teammates with their 30-30 seasons. It's happened twice before, in 96 with Dante Bichette and Ellis Burks on the Colorado Rockies, one of my favorite teams. And then in 87, when Hojo and Darryl Strawberry did it for the Mets. The 2025 Mets, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso became the first trio in Mets history to have at least 30 home runs in the same season. Lindor and Soto became the first pair of 33 Mets teammates since Johnson and Strawberry in 87, like we mentioned. Lindor has 30 home runs in a season for the 6th time. That's second most by a shortstop in Major League Baseball history behind Alex Rodriguez with 7. I would think that he'd be able to eclipse that. And the Mets now have 8 individual 30-30 seasons. That's the most of any franchise. Again, thank you, Howard Johnson. Oh boy, Kodai Senga. We're 3 seasons into the 5-year, $75 million contract he signed prior to 2023. He's given the Mets just 118 2/3 innings over the last 2 seasons. Team still owes him $30 million and will be incentivized to get Senga right. Yeah, dude. Cubbies came into that series against the Mets with a record of 88 68, having just gotten swept by the Reds, thanks Chicago. They then swept the Cards after our series and ended up with the 4 seed hosting the Padres in the wild card and ended up getting that win there. And then we come into the final 3 games of the season. Against the Marlins in Miami, and we lose 2-3. And in the 3 most important, pretty much championship leverage index, a baseball reference metric, I believe these are the 3 highest scores in the season. It was announced that Tyler McGill was going to have Tommy John. I was like, I was kind of hoping and counting on him to come back and make a difference, but no dice. So we opened the 3-game set with a 6-2 loss. We scored 2 in the first, probably should have scored more. And then the Marlins put up 6 in the 5th. Our win probability went from 71% to 21% in that inning. Lindor had the home run. Alonso had an RBI double. Soto went 2 for 4 with 2 stolen bases. We only mustered 6 hits against Alcantara, who's their ace. He went 7 innings, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks. We were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position and left 7 on base. Sproat went 4 2/3, giving up 5 hits, 4 earned, 1 walk, 2 Ks, only 61 pitches and a 39 game score. Again, is this a case where you pulled him too quick, too early of a hook, not trusting your young pitchers, just not having trust in your starting pitching and going to your bullpen who has been inconsistent. Soto ends up coming in and going an inning and a third and giving up 3 hits and 2 earned. So I don't know. I would not have pulled Sproat there. Pete Alonso is the first Met with 30 or more home runs and 40 or more doubles in a season since David Wright in 2008. We follow up that demoralizing loss with a shutout win in Game 161. Sound familiar? On September 27th, we win 5-0. It was a one-hit shutout win. Alonso 2 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, and a home run and double. Lindor and McNeil added RBIs. We went 4 for 13 with runners in scoring position, left 9 on base. So still huge concern. Clay Holmes went 6 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, 3 walks, 2 Ks. The bullpen was flawless again. Brooks Raley and Tyler Rogers and Edwin Diaz holding down the fort. This is the instance where it's like you didn't need to pitch Diaz up 5-0. Obviously, you don't want to leave any doubt, and you want to be 100% certain to get the win, but it's 5-0. I think if it's 2-0, 3-0, maybe even 4-0, you go to Diaz. I don't think you need to go to him here. Tyler Rogers got his 32nd hold. Diaz ended up throwing 13 pitches, but in a game where it's like you want to save your best, like odds are looking pretty good for a win. Obviously, you don't want to fumble it, but I would have gone a different direction there. Save Diaz for Game 162, and we'll get to how he was used in 162. It was just weird too. But at Just Mets said Mets versus Marlins games 161. 2007 we had a 1-hit shutout win. 2008 we had a 2-hit shutout win. 2025 we have a 1-hit shutout win, and then we all know what happens in Game 162. So it's just that dread, just absolute dread, knowing that it's gonna come back to bite us in Game 162. We ended up losing Brett Beatty for the rest of the season with an oblique. I think that was a huge blow as well. If Beatty's in the lineup, does that make a difference? Probably. So Beatty ends his 4th major league season with career highs in games, average, slugging percentage, OPS, runs created plus, OPS, RBIs, home runs, and WAR. That's another one where it's like, just not looking good. Not looking up for this team. In terms of quality starts in 2025, Philadelphia Phillies led the way by a healthy margin with 83. The next closest was where the Red Sox was 71. Reds got 69 quality starts. The Mets had the 3rd fewest quality starts, 38. Only the Marlins and Rockies had less quality starts, and we still lost to the fucking Marlins. So of the 38 quality starts that the Mets had in 2025, 25 of the 38 came before July 1st. Oh my God. David Peterson had 14 in his first 21 starts, so 14 quality starts in his first 21. And since then, he had 1 in 9. Holmes is second on the team with 7, and then Nolan McLean had 4 quality starts in 8. You can't tell me that doesn't have some kind of impact and effect on the offense. I've brought it before, but I'll bring it up again. Gosh darn it. When your pitcher goes out there and has a poor quality start 1 time, it's like, all right, let's pick him up. 3 times, it's like, all right, we've done it before, let's pick him up. 10th time, 9th time, you're like, motherfuck, dude. We can't keep doing this. Lindor joined Howard Johnson as the only players in franchise history with multiple 30-30 seasons. Congratulations. Most home runs by a shortstop in Major League Baseball history. You have Ernie Banks at 269, and then you have Francisco Lindor at 270. So he's 4th most. He's behind Miguel Tejada at 291, A-Rod at 344, and Ripken at 345. Will he be able to catch? He should be able to catch Tejada next season, you would think. And then it's gonna be interesting to see if he can catch A-Rod and Ripken. When interviewed by Steve Gelbs after the game, Pete Alonso said, quote, "I'm wearing Juan Soto's socks. I put on Francisco Lindor's eye black, and then I use Brandon Nimmo's lotion." Really thankful for the good vibes. So yeah, Alonso pulling out all the stops. You can't tell me he doesn't care. You can't tell me. Yes, he looks down a lot of the time. There are a lot of times where he's striking out. It looks like he's just completely mentally out of the game. But the dude's trying everything, pulling all the levers to get it right. So I want him back. Just Mets said it should not be overlooked how poorly the Mets have handled Ronnie Mauricio this season. They essentially kept him on ice at the big league level for months rather than give him everyday playing time in AAA. Now he's starting in must-win games completely cold. I will note this. Maybe you didn't hear this, but the booth did mention that the Mets were down to one more option with Ronnie Mauricio, meaning they only have one more option at AAA left before they have to, they can no longer option him to AAA, and they wanted to save it for next season. Again, this is like, I don't know. I guess that's smart. Mauricio just did look like he just didn't want any part of this team or playing in the game. Just like the body language, it's just, I said it before, but him and Vientos, Mets Muse says officially zero confidence in Mark Vientos. What a damn shame. And it's like, yeah, the Mets did a disservice to Vientos and Mauricio for sure, but Vientos and Mauricio didn't do much in terms of like acting and behaving like they want to be there and they wanted to win and they were excited to play and they had that burning desire to win and ultra competitive. That didn't come across. That's just perception, but perception is reality. I know that all too well. Going to Diaz with a 5-run lead when the season can hinge on tomorrow. I don't know, man. Probably not my move. That's from Good Fundies Brian, and I have to agree. I'm not saying don't use him at all, but like 5-run lead, let's toss out another reliever that we have the most confidence in, not Diaz. And then, things go sideways. It's now 5-2. You bring in Diaz. I just would have liked to save him for game 162. At NYM Stats, New York Mets Stats, says Mets starting pitchers have a 2.79 ERA and 344 innings pitched all time in game 161 of the season, including 13 starts, allowing 0 runs. That's an absurd stat. And John Harper said, kudos to Holmes for coming up big for the Mets season on the line. He's thrown 165 innings, nearly 100 more than any season in his career. It did look like he hit a wall weeks ago, but a gutsy effort with so much at stake. Wholeheartedly agree. Isn't that? I mean, that's just a reflection of the season. That's how wild the season was. The fact that you have a guy who was a relief pitcher, first-time starter, and he's your most reliable starter. That's no bueno, bro. And then, of course, game 162. I mean, the writing is all over the fucking wall, draped in blood, like, those horror movies where you see like an invisible hand writing out, an ominous message in blood on the wall. That was like, oh, a game 161 shutout win against the Marlins? Oh, what would happen in the next game, the final game of the season against the Marlins? Well, it's a shutout loss, of course. We only got 5 hits, 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, 10 left on base. Minaya gets the start, 1 2/3 innings, 2 walks, 3 Ks, 38 pitches, 56 game score. Short hook, a lot of people are saying. I don't know. You kind of maybe have to agree. Brooks Raley and Tyler Rogers usually fairly shut down. They allow a run each. Stanek allows 2 runs in the bottom of the 4th. Then you bring in Diaz to pitch 2 innings in the 5th and the 6th, which I just don't understand it. It just seems like a bad idea. Like, I understand you want to stop the bleeding, and he's your best chance to stop the bleeding, but then you have the 7th, 8th, and 9th. So I do wonder if you didn't go to Diaz in the previous game when it was 5-0, you hold him out, and the hope there is that someone else comes in, you can manage to escape with the win. Then you could go Diaz for the 7th, 8th, and 9th in game 162, but then who you gonna bring in the 5th and 6th? I don't know. It's it shows that you don't have confidence in a lot of that bullpen other than Diaz. Mendoza repeatedly showed confidence in Stanek. And, Stanek, a lot of innings, a lot of games, but it's like he was like the only guy that was healthy. It's not like I don't think Mendoza was like, oh, I choose Stanek because I want to. It was more of a need-based thing. It's like everyone else is hurt. There was a stretch where we don't have really. We didn't have Garrett. We didn't have a lot of the setup guys. Helsley was a disaster. It's like it was kind of just default. And the big play here that, my God, if it's just a foot distance difference, maybe we're not sitting here watching the playoffs. We're actually in the playoffs. Mets loaded the bases for Pete Alonso, who smoked a 115.9 mile per hour rocket, the hardest hit ball by any Met in 2025, and it finds Javier Sanoja's glove. I mean, it almost fucking knocked him over. That's how hard that ball was hit. Pete was in complete disbelief, and it was just like after that, it was just like all the energy, good vibes, momentum, anything that we were holding on to, it just feels like it just left the building. You're not going to score. You definitely scored 2 there, and I forget who was on first, but I think you almost score 3 there, and then it's like you're set up for, you have 2 outs, so who knows if you're able to knock Alonso in, but you're feeling a lot better about your chances. Accountability King at Team Thirst Trap. Who the fuck comes up with these names? Had a really eye-popping stat that he posted on X, or she posted on X. The Marlins, in this 3-game set, scored in 2 innings all series and won 2 of 3. Baseball is cruel. It's one of the cruelest sports. We know that. Baseball gods, finicky bunch, and have no sense of sympathy or big on irony. But no empathy or sympathy, just big on irony. Marlins going in only 2 of 27 innings and took the series. John Harper said pitching was at the root of the collapse, going all the way back to Alonso's bad throw and Senga pulling his hamstring. But the Mets played some dreadful baseball down the stretch, making mental and physical mistakes. Stearns had a terrible trade deadline. He also said a fitting ending to an abominable 3-month collapse by the Metros. The Reds gave him one last chance by losing in Milwaukee, and they couldn't even score a run. Yeah, that was, I'm like, I can't believe that, like, the Brewers are going to lose to the Reds. The Brewers had nothing to play for. So for all the people, and I know most likely they weren't like 100% serious, but the people like calling out the Brewers cowards, it's like, you can't, no, that's not on the Brewers. That's on us. That's on the Mets for not doing your job, for not putting yourself in a better position. We had so many opportunities and we wasted them all. We blew them all. So I'm not going to fault the Brewers for not beating the Reds. And then in a game where they already locked up the number 1 seed because the Phillies lost to the Twins, they didn't have to win. They didn't even have to play any of their starters. And they ended up beating the Reds in the final game of the season to give us a chance, and we did nothing with it. So Brewers helped us out, and we just could not turn it on and play with any kind of emotion or fire to get it done. After holding the best record in Major League Baseball on the morning of June 13th, the Mets went 38-55 the rest of the way to miss the playoffs. The only National League teams with more losses since June 13th, the Rockies with 64 and the fucking Nationals with 58, who we lost 2 of 3 to. The Mets had a worse record than the 44-48 Pirates after that date. Again, a team that we did not fare well against. We were the only team in the majors to not have a single win when trailing after 8 innings. We had the best record in baseball. 44-24, 45-24. You look at the other 4 teams in that graphic, from when we had the best record. This is the best records in baseball as of that date, June 12th, June 13th. Tigers 44-25, so they had a monumental collapse, but still managed to make the playoffs. Yankees at 41-25, almost won the division. Cubs 41-27, ended up losing the division to the Brewers, but still made the playoffs as the 4 seed. And then the Dodgers 41-28, who almost lost the division to the Padres, still won the division and have the number 3 seed, playing the Reds and put a stomping on them for the majority of that game and then let them back in late. So Opta Stats yet again with another dynamite nugget of information. This one hurts. So sit down, lay down, get your comfies on, maybe make some tea, bundle up in your nice sweater, maybe start a fire in the fireplace. Because this one's going to hurt. The Cincinnati Reds are the first team in Major League Baseball history to have no qualifying batter hit 270, no batter hit 25 home runs, no pitcher to win 15 games, and no pitcher to notch 200 strikeouts in a non-shortened season and still make the playoffs. The Mets had so many qualifying batters hit 270. The Mets had, we just said, 4 batters hit 25 or more home runs. Did we have a pitcher that won 15 games? No. And I don't think we had a pitcher notch 200 strikeouts. But offensively, we had a playoff team. I know the hitting didn't come up clutch a lot of times. The batting wasn't always there, but it was a playoff caliber offense. Our pitching was disastrous. The Reds went 25-26 over their final 51 games and caught up to us and made the playoffs. I think I've heard the term control their own destiny enough to last a fucking lifetime. I hope I never have to hear or see control their own destiny again, because we exceeded that quota nonstop in the final week. Matthew Searle at Searle's Baseball on X said the Mets no longer control their own destiny, ... But does anyone? Or is free will merely an illusion? Something to think about. That was good. So that's the, that was just September. That was just September. Yeah, I'm not going to do the full overview of the season in review. I'll save that for maybe later this week or early next week, because there's a lot of great information in the season review. It's not all bad. There's a lot of good in there in terms of the season summary, our team win-loss splits, individual accomplishments and achievements and rankings, how the season compares against others in franchise history. We'll also take a look ahead at where we stand in terms of free agents, who is under contract for 2026, who's in arbitration, pre-arbitration, player options, team options, club options. We'll take a look at that in the next episode. But I think we've done a thorough autopsy on the last month of the 2025 Mets season. That all basically tells you why the collapse happened, and despite some really bad baseball, still had a chance. After all that, after all the bad baseball we watched, we were still had the opportunity to go play in October. So as much as down as some people are and saying we need to blow it up, I'd say, why are you going to blow up the core? McNeil, okay, I can kind of understand. It's like I think people McNeil has maybe run his course with the Mets. But that being said, entering a contract year, who's to say that McNeil doesn't get back to a batting title? If McNeil can get to back to a batting title in 2026, it almost doesn't matter what the pitching does. No, it's not true. So big offseason for Stearns. We'll get into it the next time when I do the full season review. But, we were tied to train tracks. The team was tied to train tracks. We saw the train coming from a mile away, and no one came to save us. It was just the Miami Marlins on the side of the train tracks, just twirling their evil mustache and their fucking top hat and their monocle, just being like, they're just like, no, we know you're coming, and you know what's gonna happen. But all right, your ears are bleeding. Maybe go grab a tissue real quick. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And hey, you know what? Let's go Mets. You got to believe 2026 is going to be straight magical. If you're looking at 2022 to 2023, 2024, 2025, playoffs in 22 and 2024, wild card divisional, LCS, 2026 is a historic anniversary season. 40th anniversary of the fucking World Series win. What a time to go back to the big championship series, World Series. What a time. The perfect time. So we'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.